5 people died. Different months, different illnesses, different doctors. One died in his sleep. One suffered a heart attack while gardening. One collapsed at a private country club. One died of what looked like a perfectly ordinary stroke. And the 5th never even made it to the hospital. None of them had obvious injuries. None showed signs of poisoning. None had enemies anyone could prove. Their families mourned them. Their doctors signed the death certificates. And the police had no reason to get involved. There was only one thing the 5 dead people had in common. Each of them had changed their will shortly before they died. And in every case, the person who benefited most from that change had been waiting for the inheritance. By the time Detective Emma Hayes learned about the 5th death, more than 18 months had passed since the first. 5 deaths, 5 natural causes, 5 new wills, and possibly one murderer who had discovered how to kill without leaving a trace. The call came at 6:17 on a Tuesday morning. Emma Hayes was already awake. She was sitting at her kitchen table with a mug of coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes earlier, staring at a case file she had promised herself she would finish before leaving for work. She had not finished it. She was tired. Not dramatically tired, not the kind of exhaustion people noticed. Just the ordinary kind. The kind that made you read the same paragraph twice and realize you hadn't absorbed a word. Her phone vibrated across the table. Emma looked at the screen. Captain Olivia Brooks, she answered. Hayes. You're awake. Emma glanced at the clock. It's 6:17. So that's a yes. Emma almost smiled. What's wrong? There was a pause. How familiar are you with Harold Whitmore? The Emma leaned back. The name meant something. She just didn't know what. Whitmore as in the Whitmore Foundation. That's the one. Emma's eyes moved toward the stack of files beside her. Philanthropist. Retired investment banker. 81. Worth somewhere around 200 million. Was. Emma's expression changed. How did he die? Heart failure. Natural. That's what the medical examiner says. Emma waited. Captain Brooks did not continue. Emma knew her well enough to recognize the silence. Then why are you calling me? Because his daughter called the department last night. She thinks it wasn't natural. She thinks her father was murdered. Emma looked down at the coffee. Evidence. Not exactly. What does she have? Nothing? Emma frowned. Then what does she have? A will. That got Emma's attention. Explain. Whitmore changed his will 3 weeks before he died. To whom? That's the problem. Brooks took a breath. Left almost everything to a woman named Margaret Cole. Emma searched her memory. Family. No po. Business partner. No. Employee. No. Friend. Apparently. Emma stood. She walked toward the bedroom reaching for her jacket. How much? 46 million. Emma stopped. 46 million. And the daughter gets nothing. Almost nothing. Emma put her jacket on. What's the daughter's name? Eleanor Whitmore. Where is she? At her father's house. Why is she there? Because she found something. Emma paused. What? She won't tell anyone over the phone. Emma grabbed her keys. Send me the address. I already did. Emma's phone vibrated. She looked at the message. Whitmore Estate, Ravenwood's north side, large property, private road, security gate. Emma headed toward the door. Olivia. Yeah. Why me? Brooks was quiet for a moment. Because Eleanor Whitmore specifically asked for you. Emma stopped. She knows me. No. Then why? She said she saw your name in an old newspaper. Emma stared at the phone. That's reassuring. Emma, I'm going. Good. The call ended. Emma slipped the phone into her pocket. She stood by the door for a second. Something about the call bothered her. It wasn't the money. Rich people changed wills all the time. It wasn't even the suspicious death. People died unexpectedly every day. What bothered her was that Captain Brooks had called her before 8 in the morning about a death that had already been ruled natural. That meant somebody had decided the case wasn't finished. And usually, when that happened, there was a reason. The Whitmore estate sat behind a stone wall almost 8 feet high. Emma drove through the security gate and followed the winding driveway toward a 3-story house surrounded by bare winter trees. The property was enormous, not flashy. Expensive in the way old money usually was. Stone, dark wood, large windows, no gold statues, no ridiculous fountain, just money that had been there long enough to stop showing off. A woman stood outside the front entrance. Emma recognized her immediately. Eleanor Whitmore looked about 50. She wore a dark coat over a cream sweater. Her hair was pulled back. Her face looked exhausted. Not tearful, exhausted. Emma parked and walked toward her. Ms. Whitmore? Detective Hayes. Yes. Ian nodded. Thank you for coming. Emma showed her badge. Tell me what happened. Eleanor looked toward the house. My father died 4 days ago. I know. They said it was heart failure, according to the death certificate. Eleanor's jaw tightened. That's not what I believe. Emma studied her, while Eleanor didn't answer immediately. Instead, she opened the front door. Come inside. Emma followed. The house was quiet. Too quiet. There were flowers everywhere. Funeral flowers, white lilies, roses. A large arrangement sat on a table beneath a portrait of Harold Whitmore. He looked exactly like the kind of man who had spent his life being obeyed. Silver hair, sharp eyes, expensive suit, a face that looked permanently unimpressed. Eleanor noticed Emma looking at the portrait. He was difficult. Emma glanced at her. That's one way to describe him. He could be cruel. Did he threaten anyone? Constantly. Anyone in particular? Eleanor looked toward the portrait. Everyone. Emma almost smiled. That's not very helpful. I know. Eleanor walked into a large study. A wall of bookshelves covered one side. A fireplace stood cold on the opposite wall, and in the center was a massive wooden desk. Several folders were spread across it. Eleanor pointed. That's what I found. Emma approached. There were photocopies of legal documents, bank statements, a handwritten note, and a will. Emma picked up the will. The date was 3 weeks before Harold Whitmore's death. She read the beneficiary section. Margaret Cole. Emma looked at Eleanor. Who is Margaret Cole? I don't know. Your father did, I suppose. How? I've been trying to figure that out. Emma placed the document down. Was she mentioned anywhere else? No. Emails? None that I could find. Phone records? Not yet. Photos? Eleanor shook her head. Then how did you discover her? Eleanor looked at the will. My father left me a letter. She picked up a folded piece of paper. Emma opened it carefully. The handwriting was unmistakably old-fashioned. The letter was short. Only 6 lines. Emma read it once. Then again. Her eyes stopped at the final sentence. If Eleanor asks questions about Margaret Cole, give her the file in the bottom drawer. And Emma looked toward the desk. Did you find the file? Eleanor nodded. That's what I found. Emma opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a thin brown folder. She removed it. There was no label, no case number, no name. She opened it. The first page contained a photograph. A woman in her late 60s. Margaret Cole. Emma turned the photograph over. Nothing. The second page was a bank statement. The third was a newspaper clipping. The fourth was a death certificate. Emma stopped. She looked at Eleanor. Who is this? Eleanor swallowed. I don't know. Emma looked down again. The death certificate belonged to a man named Thomas Avery. Cause of death, acute myocardial infarction, natural causes. Date of death, October 14, 17 months earlier. Emma's eyes moved to the next page. Another death certificate. Other name, another natural cause. Then another, and another. 5 certificates. 5 people. 5 different causes of death. Emma slowly spread them across the desk. Eleanor stood opposite her. My father was investigating them. And Emma looked up. Why? I don't know. Then why do you think someone killed him? Eleanor hesitated. Because of what happened the night before he died. Emma waited. He received a phone call. From Margaret Cole. I don't know. Did you hear the conversation? No. What did he say? Eleanor's face changed. He said one sentence. What sentence? Eleanor looked at the 5 death certificates. He said, you should have stayed dead. The room became very still. Emma looked back at the documents. 5 people, 5 deaths, 5 natural causes, and now a 6th, Harold Whitmore. She picked up the first certificate again. These people, Eleanor nodded. They all changed their wills. Emma looked at her. Before they died? Yes. How long before? Between 2 weeks and 2 months. Emma stared at the papers. Who inherited? That's what my father was trying to find out. Emma turned to the final document. It was not a death certificate. It was a photocopy of a handwritten list. 5 names, 5 dates, and beside each name was a single dollar amount. At the bottom, Harold Whitmore had written the thousands 214 700,000 Arsa. Emma read the number twice. That's the total? Eleanor nodded. My father's estate is worth about 200 million. Emma looked at the 5 names again. Then she noticed something. A small mark beside the 5th name. A question mark. She looked at Eleanor. Why did your father put this here? I don't know. Emma turned the page over. Nothing. She checked the folder again. There was one final sheet. A printed email. No sender. No recipient. Only a timestamp. Fest 9:42 p.m. 3 nights before Whitmore's death. The message contained 7 words. You are looking in the wrong grave. Say. Emma stared at it. Who found this? My father's lawyer. Where is he? Coming here. What's his name? Richard Bell. Emma looked at the clock. How long? 20 minutes. And Emma nodded. She gathered the documents. Then she stopped. The room suddenly felt different, not because of the money, not because of the 5 deaths, because of the timing. 5 wealthy people had changed their wills. 5 wealthy people had died, and Harold Whitmore had begun investigating them. Then he changed his own will. Then he died. Emma looked at the portrait over the fireplace. Harold Whitmore's painted eyes seemed to stare directly at her. She had seen enough cases to know that coincidence was dangerous. But coincidence was not evidence. Not yet. She turned back toward Eleanor. One more question. Yes. Where is the original will? Eleanor's expression changed. I don't know. Emma went still. The original was here. Yes. Where? And my father's safe. Where's the safe? Eleanor pointed toward the far wall. Emma walked over. The safe was built into the wall behind a painting. The door was open, empty. Emma looked inside.
No documents, no jewelry.
No cash. Nothing. She turned around. When did you open this? I didn't. Your father's lawyer? No. Then who did? Eleanor's face had gone pale. I don't know. Emma stepped closer to the safe. There were no obvious signs of forced entry. No scratches. No broken lock. Nothing. Then she noticed something on the floor. A tiny white fragment. She crouched. Picked it up. Paper. Burned at one edge. Emma looked toward the fireplace. Cold ashes. She walked over. Something had been burned recently. Not wood. Paper. A lot of it. Emma looked down at the ashes, and then she saw it. A half-burned corner of a document. One word was still visible. F. Cole Const. Emma straightened. Her phone rang. Captain Brooks. Emma answered. Where are you? Wheremore Estate? Brooks's voice sounded different. More serious. What did you find? 5 deaths. Silence. Then Brooks said, That's not all. Emma waited. We ran Whitmore's name through the old case database. And there are 4 other deaths connected to him. Emma frowned. How? All 4 people attended the same private financial club. Emma looked at the 5 death certificates on the desk. What's the club called? Brooks gave her the name. Emma's eyes narrowed. Are you sure? Yes. What? Brooks hesitated. Because that club closed down 19 years ago. Emma looked toward Eleanor. Who owned it? Brooks answered. Harold Whitmore. The call ended. Emma remained motionless. 5 deaths, 1 fortune. 1 missing will. 1 mysterious woman. And now a private club that had disappeared almost 2 decades earlier. She looked at the burned piece of paper in her hand. For the first time that morning, Emma stopped thinking about whether Harold Whitmore had been murdered. She started wondering something else. What if Harold Whitmore hadn't been the first victim? What if he had simply been the first victim who realized what was happening? And if that was true, someone had been getting away with murder for a very long time. Richard Bell arrived 27 minutes late. Emma knew because she had checked the clock 3 times. The first time, she was annoyed. The second time, she was suspicious. The third time, she decided that anyone who could charge wealthy people by the hour probably had a different relationship with punctuality. Eleanor Whitmore was sitting across from Emma in her father's study. Neither woman had said much in the last 10 minutes. The 5 death certificates remained spread across the desk. Emma had photographed every page. The original documents were now sealed in evidence bags. She had also photographed the burned fragment from the fireplace. Cole. 1 word, 1 name. Possibly the name of a woman who had received $46 million. Possibly the name of someone connected to 5 deaths. Possibly nothing. Emma had learned a long time ago that the most dangerous word in an investigation was probably. The front door opened downstairs. Footsteps crossed the marble floor. A man's voice carried up the staircase. Sorry, traffic. Emma looked at Eleanor. That's what people say when they're late. Eleanor almost smiled. Richard always says that. The study door opened. Richard Bell stepped inside. He was a thin man in his early 60s with silver hair, wire-frame glasses, and the expression of someone who had been inconvenienced by the existence of other people for most of his adult life. He carried a leather briefcase. Detective Hayes. Mr. Bell. I'm sorry I'm late. Emma looked at him. Traffic, Richard paused. Actually, yes. Eleanor looked down. Emma noticed. So did Richard. I left early, he added. That makes it worse, Emma said. Richard stared at her for a second. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. You're Captain Brooks's detective. That's what my badge says. Richard placed his briefcase on the desk. I've heard you're difficult. Emma looked at Eleanor. Apparently that's going around. Richard gave a small laugh. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. Then his expression became serious. What did you find? Emma gestured toward the documents. 5 deaths. Richard's face changed. He looked at the certificates. Then you found them. You knew about them. I knew about 4. Emma studied him. Your client's death makes 5. Richard nodded slowly. Harold was investigating the others. Why? I don't know. Emma leaned back. You were his attorney. His estate attorney. That's not an answer. Richard sighed. Harold stopped trusting people near the end. Did he trust you? I believe so. That's not an answer either. Richard removed his glasses and cleaned them with a small cloth. Detective Harold Whitmore trusted exactly 3 people. Woo. His daughter. Eleanor looked at him. His accountant. Emma waited. And Richard put his glasses back on. His cat. Emma blinked. Eleanor looked embarrassed. He had a cat. Apparently, Richard said. Emma looked toward the hallway. Where is it? Dead. Emma looked at him. Richard immediately raised a hand. Natural causes. For the first time that morning, Emma actually laughed. It was brief. She shook her head. Please tell me you're joking. I wish I were. Eleanor sighed. My father was very attached to that cat. Emma glanced toward the portrait of Harold Whitmore. That explains the expression. Richard looked at the portrait. That was painted before the cat. Emma almost smiled again. Then she noticed Richard staring at the 5 death certificates. His expression had changed. You recognize them? Richard nodded. All of them? Tell me. He picked up the first certificate. Thomas Avery, 74, former CEO of Avery Pharmaceuticals. Emma nodded. Cause of death? Heart attack? Natural? Yes. Richard moved to the second. Linda Crawford, 68, real estate developer. Stroke. Correct. Third, George Mason, 79, former owner of Mason Construction. Respiratory failure. Richard nodded. Fourth, Arthur Clyde, 82, investment manager. Complications from diabetes. Richard placed the certificate down. The 5th was Harold. Emma looked at him. And Margaret Cole? Richard became very still. There it was, a reaction, small, but real. Emma noticed. So you know her? Richard didn't answer. Eleanor leaned forward. Richard. I've heard the name. Emma said nothing. Richard looked at her. That's all I can tell you. Why? Because I don't know enough to tell you more. Emma folded her arms. That's usually lawyer language for I know something I don't want to say. Richard gave her a tired look. Detective, if I told you every time a lawyer didn't want to say something, you'd never get any sleep. I don't get much anyway. Then we're both suffering. Eleanor looked between them. Are you two going to do this all day? Emma and Richard looked at each other. No, Emma said. Richard nodded. Probably. Larner sighed. Emma turned back to the documents. Let's start with the wills. Richard opened his briefcase. He removed 4 folders. Each one contained legal documents. These are copies of the amended wills for Avery, Crawford, Mason, and Klein. Emma opened the first. Thomas Avery had changed his will 41 days before his death. His previous beneficiaries were his 2 sons. The new will left nearly 70% of his estate to a charitable foundation. The remaining 30% went to an individual beneficiary, Margaret Cole. Emma looked up. Same woman. Yes. She opened the next. Linda Crawford, Margaret Cole. Again. George Mason, Margaret Cole. Arthur Klein, Margaret Cole. Emma slowly put the papers down. 4 people. Richard nodded. 4 wills. Same beneficiary. Yes. And Harold's will? Richard didn't answer. Emma's eyes narrowed. Mr. Bell. I drafted it. Where is the original? I don't know. Who has access to the original? Richard hesitated. Harold. Emma stared at him. He's dead. I realize that. Then, who? The estate executor. Who? Richard looked at Eleanor. Eleanor's face went pale. I never saw the original. Emma looked between them. Then somebody removed it. Richard nodded. Apparently. Why? Because the original will would identify Margaret Cole as the primary beneficiary. Emma leaned forward. Wouldn't a copy do the same thing? Legally, it's complicated. Convenient. Richard ignored that. Harold's will was signed 3 weeks before his death. We're in my office. Who was present? Harold. Myself. 2 witnesses. Names. Richard gave them. Emma wrote them down. Did Margaret Cole attend? No. Did Harold mention her? Not by name. What did he say? Richard looked uncomfortable. He said the will was temporary. Emma frowned. Temporary. He told me intended to change it again. When? He wouldn't say. Why? Richard hesitated. He said he needed to survive long enough to do it. The room went quiet. Emma looked at Eleanor. She looked genuinely shocked. My father never told me that. Richard nodded. Harold was frightened. Emma's attention sharpened. Of what? I don't know. You must have had some idea. He believed someone was watching him. Did he say, who? Knew. Did he ever mention Margaret Cole? Richard looked at the fireplace. Once Emma waited. What did he say? Richard's voice became quieter. He said, Margaret doesn't exist. Emma frowned. But we have a photograph? Harold knew about the photograph. Then what did he mean? I don't know. Emma looked at the picture of Margaret Cole, an older woman, Gray hair, plain clothing, a neutral expression, nothing remarkable. Emma picked it up. Where was this photograph taken? Richard shrugged. I don't know. Who gave it to Harold? I don't know. Who is she? I don't know. Emma stared at him. You seem to know a lot of things you don't know. Richard nodded. Occupational hazard. Eleanor finally laughed. It surprised Emma. The sound disappeared almost immediately, but it changed the room. For a few seconds, the tension eased. Then Emma turned the photograph over again. There was something handwritten on the back. A date, Retree, June 18, 2007, and Emma looked at Richard. That's 19 years ago. Richard nodded. Yes, that's the same year the financial club closed. His expression changed. Emma noticed. Tell me about the club. Richard sat down. The Ravenwood Exchange. What was it? A private investment club? Members. Very wealthy people. How wealthy? Richard smiled faintly. The kind of wealthy where losing $1 million was considered an irritating afternoon. Emma looked at him. That wealthy. That wealthy. Who belonged? Harold Whitmore, Thomas Avery, Linda Crawford, George Mason, Arthur Klein. Emma looked at the death certificates. All 5. Anyone else? Dozens. Who ran it? Harold. Why did it close? Richard became silent. Emma waited. Finally, he said, because one of the members died. Natural causes. No. Emma straightened. How? Suicide. Emma wrote it down. Name. Richard looked at her. Margaret Cole. Emma stopped writing. What? Margaret Cole was a member of the Ravenwood Exchange. Eleanor stood. That's impossible. Richard looked at her. Why? My father said she didn't exist. Maybe he meant she wasn't alive. And Emma stared at the photograph. June 18, 2007. The date the photograph was supposedly taken. The date of Margaret Cole's death. She turned toward Richard. How did she die? She jumped from the roof of the club. Was there an investigation? Of course. Who investigated? Ravenwood police. Any suspicion? None. Was there a suicide note? Richard nodded. Yes. What did it say? Richard looked at Eleanor. She blamed the club. Emma frowned. For what? Financial fraud. That changed everything. Emma reached for her phone. She called Ben Torres. He answered on the 4th ring. Please tell me this is an emergency. Emma looked at the clock. It's almost 10. Exactly. You're still in bed? You sound like you're in bed. I'm in my car. We're parking lot doing what? Emma sighed. Ben, fine. I'm getting coffee. Get here. That's less specific than I'd hoped. Whitmore Estate. There was a pause. Is this the rich dead guy? Wes. The one with the suspicious will? Yes. How suspicious? 5 deaths. Another pause. Okay. And I need everything you can find on a woman named Margaret Cole. The Ben's voice changed. That's not a common name. No. How far back? 19 years. He groaned. Emma? What? That's not research. What is it? Archaeology? Emma smiled. Bring a shovel. You knew you were going to say that. She ended the call. Richard looked at her. Your partner? Yes. He's enthusiastic. He has his moments. Eleanor looked toward the doorway. How long will this take? Emma looked at the 5 death certificates. I don't know. She picked up Margaret Cole's photograph. But I think we're going to be here for a while. Ben arrived 2 minutes later carrying 2 coffees. He walked into the study wearing a dark jacket, jeans, and an expression that suggested he had not fully forgiven Emma for making him leave his car. He handed her 1 coffee. Peace offering. Emma took it. You're late. I brought coffee. You're still late. You can have coffee or punctuality. Pick one. Emma took a sip. Coffee. I knew it. Ben looked at Eleanor. Ben Torres. Eleanor Whitmore. Sorry about your father. Thank you. Ben nodded toward the papers. So this is the famous death by rich people case. Emma looked at him. That's not what we're calling it. I'm testing titles. Don't. Ben looked at Richard. And you must be the lawyer. Richard Bell. Ben extended his hand. Ben Torres. They shook. Richard looked at Emma. Is he always like this? Emma took another sip. Unfortunately. Fortunately, she's stuck with me. Emma ignored him. She handed him the photograph. Margaret Cole. Ben studied it. Who is she? That's what you're going to find out. He turned the photograph over. 2007. Correct. Dead. Supposedly. Ben looked at Emma. Supposedly. Suicide. Ben looked at the photograph again. That's going to make your day difficult. It already has. Ben smiled. Good. I was worried I was late for nothing. Emma pointed toward the folders. 5 people. All members of the Ravenwood Exchange. All changed their wills before dying. All named Margaret Cole as a beneficiary. Ben's smile disappeared. All 5? Yes. Who was Margaret? Member of the same club? Dead?
Officially?
Ben looked at Richard. Officially, Richard nodded. She died 19 years ago. Ben looked back at Emma. So we're investigating a dead woman who inherited money from 4 dead people, and possibly from a 5th. Ben stared at her. That's efficient. Emma raised an eyebrow. Efficient. 1 beneficiary, 5 estates, minimal paperwork. Richard laughed quietly. Emma gave Ben a look. Focus. I am focused. You just called murder efficient. I said the paperwork was efficient. Emma shook her head. Ben opened his laptop. I'll see what I can find. Emma looked toward Richard. You said Margaret's suicide note accused the club of financial fraud. Yes. What happened after? The club closed? Immediately? Within a month? Why? People stopped trusting Harold? Did the police find fraud? No. Then why close it? Richard's expression hardened. Because 3 days after Margaret died, another member disappeared. Emma looked at him. Disappeared. Daniel Reeves. Was he found? No. Dead. Never confirmed. Ben looked up from the laptop. Hold on. Emma turned. I just found something. Ben rotated the laptop toward them. An old newspaper archive. A headline appeared on the screen. REVEOODNVestment CLUMEMBRANG. Below it was a photograph. A younger Harold Whitmore. Beside him stood 4 other men. Emma recognized them. Thomas Avery, George Mason, Arthur Klein, and one unfamiliar man, Daniel Reeves. Ben scrolled. Reeves disappeared 3 days after Margaret Cole's death. Emma read the article. Police suspected he had fled the state after losing money. No body, no confirmed sightings, no charges. The article ended with a sentence that made Emma pause, as Reeves was reportedly scheduled to meet with Margaret Cole on the evening before her death. Emma looked at Richard. Did you know this? Richard nodded. Harold did. Why didn't he tell me? He didn't trust the police. Emma stared at him. Apparently, he didn't trust anyone. Ben continued scrolling. There's more. What? An update from 6 months later. He turned the screen. A small article. Only 4 paragraphs. Daniel Reeves had been declared legally dead. His estate had been divided among surviving relatives. Except for one unusual detail. A private trust had been created shortly before his disappearance. The beneficiary was Margaret Cole. Emma felt the room tighten around her. How much? Ben read the figure. $21 million. Nobody spoke. Emma looked at the 5 death certificates. Then the wills. Then Margaret's photograph. The pieces were starting to form a pattern. But something was wrong. Very wrong. If Margaret Cole had died in 2007, she couldn't have inherited money from Thomas Avery, Linda Crawford, George Mason, or Arthur Klein years later. Unless the woman in the photograph wasn't Margaret Cole. Or Margaret Cole wasn't dead. Emma turned to Richard. Where is the original photograph? I don't know. Who has access to the club's records? I don't know. Who witnessed Margaret Cole's death? The police. Names. I don't remember. Emma stood. Then we'll find out. Ben closed his laptop. Where are we going? Emma looked at the photograph one more time. The old Ravenwood Exchange. Richard's face changed. You can't. Emma looked at him. Why? Because the building was demolished. When? 19 years ago. Ben raised an eyebrow. Emma turned to him. You're learning. Ben smiled. Emma gathered the folders. Let's go. As they left the study, Emma looked back at the portrait of Harold Whitmore. For the first time, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. The portrait showed Harold standing beside a fireplace. His right hand rested on the shoulder of a woman. Emma stepped closer. The woman was partially hidden in shadow. Gray hair, narrow face, plain dress. Emma's breath caught. She pulled out Margaret Cole's photograph, then looked back at the portrait. Same woman, same face, same eyes. But the portrait had been painted 19 years ago, and according to the official records, Margaret Cole had already been dead. Emma lowered the photograph. Ben noticed her expression. What? Emma looked at him. We have a problem? Ben glanced at the portrait. Let me guess. Emma nodded. The dead woman is in the house. Ben stared at the painting, then at Emma. That seems bad. It is. He considered that for a moment. On the bright side, at least we're finally getting somewhere. And Emma looked at him. Ben gave a small shrug. What? You said we needed humor. Emma stared at him. I didn't say it out loud. You didn't have to. She almost smiled. Then her eyes returned to the portrait. The smile disappeared. Because if Margaret Cole had been standing beside Harold Whitmore years after her supposed death, then someone had been lying about her death. And if someone had been lying about that, Emma had to ask the question that could change the entire case. Who had actually died on June 18, 2007? The Ravenwood Exchange no longer existed. At least, that was what the city records said. Emma Hayes stood beside an empty stretch of land on the north side of Ravenwood, staring through the windshield of her car. Ben Torres sat in the passenger seat. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. There was no abandoned mansion, No old financial club. No crumbling stone building. No evidence that wealthy investors had once gathered here to gamble with millions of dollars while pretending it was business. There was a grocery store, a parking lot, and a laundromat. Ben looked through the windshield. Whoa. Emma glanced at him. What? We drove 20 minutes for a laundromat. We're not here for the laundromat. I understand that. He pointed toward the building. But if this turns out to be a clue, I'm going to be very disappointed. Emma pulled the parking brake. Why? Because I've never solved a murder involving laundry. You've never solved a murder involving laundry because you spend too much time complaining about parking. I've solved parking-related crimes. Emma looked at him. Parking tickets aren't crimes. They feel criminal. Emma got out of the car. Ben followed. The lot was almost empty. A gray sky hung over Ravenwood. The wind had picked up. Emma walked toward the edge of the property where an old brick marker stood half, buried beside a row of weeds. She crouched. The marker was weathered. Only a few letters remained visible. Arsarvirodx. Ben stood behind her. That's something. Emma brushed dirt from the stone. Maybe. Ben looked around. So where did the building go? Records say demolition in 2008, 1 year after Margaret Cole died. Emma nodded. Who owns the property now? The city? Ben looked toward the laundromat. At least the murderer left us clean clothes. Emma stood. You're getting worse. That's what the job does. They walked toward the laundromat. A bell rang as they entered. A woman behind the counter looked up. She was in her 60s and wore reading glasses on a chain around her neck. Emma showed her badge. Detective Hayes. We're looking for information about this property. The woman stared at the badge, then at Ben. Then back at Emma. What kind of information? This building used to be part of the Ravenwood Exchange. The woman's expression changed. You're asking about the club? Yes! Why? We're investigating an old death. The woman slowly removed her glasses. You people always come back. Emma paused. You people? When was the last time someone came here asking about the club? The woman thought. Maybe 12 years ago. Who? A detective. Name? No idea. What did he ask? Same thing you're asking. Ben looked at Emma. Very efficient town. The woman ignored him. That detective spent half a day looking around. Did he find anything? Hay left angry. Why? He said the records were gone. Emma leaned forward. What records? Everything from the club. Where did they go? The woman shrugged. Whitmore took them. Emma's attention sharpened. You're sure? I watched him. When? After the demolition. Harold Whitmore came here personally? Not exactly. She pointed toward the rear of the laundromat. There used to be an office there. Emma and Ben followed her. A narrow door led into a cramped storage room. Old washing machine parts filled one corner. Boxes were stacked against the wall. The woman pointed toward a section of concrete flooring. That used to be the club's basement entrance. Emma looked down. There was a rectangular patch where newer concrete had been poured over older flooring. When did they seal it? After the demolition. Why? They found something underneath. And Emma looked at her. What? The woman shook her head. I don't know. Who found it? Construction workers? Did police come? Yes. Then why wasn't in the report? The woman smiled faintly. Because you're assuming everything that happens in Ravenwood ends up in a report. Ben whispered. I like her. Emma gave him a look. He shrugged. What? The woman noticed. He's funny. Trying. I heard that. Emma ignored them. She crouched near the concrete patch. There were old scratches along the edge. Something had been dragged across the floor. Can we get access to the basement? The woman shook her head. There's no basement anymore. Emma looked at the sealed section. Are you sure? And you stirred. Then why is there a basement door? The woman stared at her. For the first time she looked uncomfortable. Because they didn't fill the whole thing. Ben stepped closer. What exactly did they find? The woman looked toward the front of the store. Nothing. Emma watched her. That's not what you were going to say. The woman sighed. They found a room. What was in a desk? Anything else? Files? Emma's eyes narrowed. What kind? Financial? Woos. The woman looked at her. Whitmore's? 2:20 minutes later, Emma was back in her car. Ben sat beside her. Neither of them had spoken since leaving the laundromat. Emma looked at the notes in her hand. There's something underneath that property. Ben nodded. Probably. And somebody went to great lengths to seal it. Definitely. Why? Money. Emma glanced at him. You've got an answer for everything today. No. Just the obvious ones. Emma started the engine. We need the demolition records. Ben opened his laptop. Already requested. Emma looked at him. You requested them while we were inside? I multitask. You're capable of that. Ben looked offended. I contain multitudes. Emma shook her head. How much coffee did you drink? Enough to see through time. That explains the talking. It explains the excellence. And Emma drove. They headed back toward the station. Halfway there, Ben's phone rang. He answered. Tours. His expression changed. Emma noticed immediately. What? Ben listened. Then he looked at her. Okay. He ended the call. Who was that? Kevin. And Emma's eyes narrowed. What did he find? Something about Margaret Cole. Good. Ben hesitated. Not exactly. Kevin Chen was waiting in the digital forensics lab when Emma and Ben arrived. He was sitting in front of 3 monitors. A half-eaten sandwich sat beside the keyboard. Emma looked at it. How long has that been there? Kevin looked at the sandwich. Depends. On what? How brave you are. Ben laughed. Emma pointed toward it. Throw it away. Kevin looked offended. That's lunch. That's evidence. It's turkey. That doesn't make it better. Kevin reluctantly moved the sandwich aside. I found Margaret Cole. Emma stepped closer. Where? Multiple places. Meaning. That's the problem. Kevin pulled up an old database. Margaret Cole had records in Ravenwood from 1979 through 2007. Emma nodded. That's expected. Then she appears again. Kevin clicked. A second file opened. It's Margaret Cole, Ravenwood County, 2009 to receive. Emma stared at the screen. That's 2 years after her supposed death. Kevin nodded. Then again in 2011. Another click. 2014. Another 2017. Another 2021. Emma looked at Ben. She's been alive. Kevin raised one finger. Maybe? The Emma frowned. What does that mean? These records could have been generated from an old identity? Whose? We don't know. Kevin opened another database. Here's something stranger. A list of property transfers appeared. Margaret Cole's name was attached to multiple properties. All purchased after 2007. All purchased in cash. All transferred through shell companies. Emma read the figures. How much? Kevin scrolled. About $68 million. Ben stared. That's a lot of laundromat money. Kevin looked at him. What? Nothing. Emma pointed toward the screen. Where are the properties? Kevin brought up locations appeared. Emma recognized my one. That's Avery's Lake House. Kevin nodded. Another. That's Crawford's townhouse. Another. Mason's office building. Another. Klein's vacation property. Emma went still. And the 5th. Kevin looked at her. Whitmore's estate. Silence. Emma looked at the map. All 5. There's more. He opened another file. A series of bank transfers. Small amounts. Different accounts. Different banks. Different dates. But every transfer eventually moved into one account. The account holder was listed as Zem Cole Holdings. Accessory. Emma looked at Kevin. Can you trace the beneficial owner? I've been trying. Result. Someone went to great lengths to hide it. How great? Kevin turned around. I've seen people hide money before. And Emma waited. This is different.
How?
Every layer of the account structure was built by someone who understood financial investigations. Ben leaned against the desk. So? Kevin looked at him. Someone smart. No. Kevin shook his head. Someone paranoid. Emma looked back at the screen. Can we find the original account? Maybe. How? I need access to the old Ravenwood Exchange financial records. Emma exchanged a look with Ben. Ben said, those were supposedly destroyed. Kevin nodded. That's what I was told. But, Kevin smiled. I didn't believe them. He opened another file. A scanned image appeared. A financial ledger. Old, yellowed, handwritten. Emma leaned closer. The first page listed the members of the Ravenwood Exchange. There were 23 names. Emma recognized 6. Harold Whitmore, Thomas Avery, Linda Crawford, George Mason, Arthur Klein, Daniel Reeves. Kevin highlighted another name. As Margaret Cole Est. Emma looked at the entry. Beside her name was a handwritten notation. Trustee of. Emma frowned. Trustee of what? Kevin trolled to another page. That's where it gets interesting. The ledger showed a series of transactions. Money entering the club, money leaving. Large transfers. Then one account appeared repeatedly. Cole Family Trust. Emma stared. Family Trust. Kevin nodded. Created 19 years before Margaret's death. Beneficiary, Margaret Cole. Who created it? Kevin enlarged the document. Emma read the name. As Harold Whitmore. Ben stopped smiling. So Harold created the trust. Kevin nodded. And Margaret was the beneficiary. Emma looked at the date, 1979. Why would Harold Whitmore create a trust for Margaret Cole? Nobody answered. Kevin clicked to the next page. A second name appeared. There's Daniel Reeves. Then another. There's Thomas Avery. Then another. Linda Crawford. George Mason. Arthur Klein. 5 men. 1 woman. 1 trust. Emma felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. These aren't random investments. Kevin shook his head. No? They've been connected since 1979. Yes. Emma looked at Ben. Then why did the club close in 2007? Ben answered quietly. Because something happened. Emma nodded. Find it. Kevin opened another database. This might help. A police report appeared date June 18, 2007. Location Ravenwood Exchange. Incident female deceased named Margaret Cole. Cause a fall from roof. Emma read the report. Then something caught her attention. Kevin? Yeah. Zoom in on the witness section. He did. 3 names appeared. Harold Whitmore, Thomas Avery, Daniel Reeves. Emma stared. 3 were present. Ben looked at the report. That's not good. Emma scrolled. What about Linda Crawford? Not listed. George Mason? No. Arthur Klein? No. Emma looked at the 3 witnesses. Harold, Thomas, Daniel. 2 of them were later found dead. The 3rd disappeared. She leaned back. Where's the medical examiner's report? Kevin searched. Missing. Police photographs. Missing. Autopsy? Missing. Everything. Kevin nodded. Everything connected to Margaret's death. Emma looked at Ben. Someone cleaned this case. Ben nodded. Very thoroughly. Kevin suddenly looked at his screen. Wait. What? He opened a new file. This isn't from the police database. What is it? Private insurance records. Emma stepped closer. Kevin opened the document. It was an insurance policy. Life insurance. Beneficiary Harold Whitmore, Emma Shirialars, Margaret Cole. Emma stared. How much? Kevin looked at the amount. $10 million. Ben let out a low whistle. So Margaret dies. Emma finished the thought. Harold collects $10 million. Kevin nodded. That's not all. He opened another policy. Thomas Avery, beneficiary Harold Whitmore, $5 million. Another. Linda Crawford, Harold Whitmore, $7 million. Another. George Mason, Harold Whitmore, $4 million. Another. Arthur Klein, Harold Whitmore, $6 million. As Emma stared at the screen, the room was silent. Ben finally said, that's $27 million. Kevin corrected him. 32. Ben looked at him. Right. Kevin smiled. You detectives solve murders. Numbers are my thing. Emma looked at him. 32 million. Kevin nodded. And that's only the policies we found. Emma stared at the names. 5 wealthy retirees, 5 natural deaths, 5 wills naming Margaret Cole, 5 insurance policies naming Harold Whitmore, a hidden trust, a dead woman who kept appearing in financial records long after her supposed death, and Harold Whitmore had spent his final weeks investigating it. Emma felt the shape of the case changing. This wasn't simply a murderer killing wealthy people for inheritance. It was something older. Something organized. Something that had started decades ago. Her phone rang. Captain Brooks. Emma answered. Hayes, where are you? Station. I need you to come back to Whitmore's house. And Emma frowned. Why? Who sent him? Who found it? Crime scene team. What? Brooks hesitated. They reopened the fireplace. Emma's expression changed. They found a hidden compartment. Emma looked at Ben. What was inside? Brooks's voice lowered. An envelope? What's in it? A photograph. Emma waited. Off Margaret Cole. Emma closed her eyes briefly. Alive. New. Emma opened her eye. Then what? Brooks answered. Dead. Emma's grip tightened around the phone. That's not possible. I know. Where is the photograph? Ate the house. Don't touch anything? No, Emma stood. We're coming. She ended the call. Ben grabbed his jacket. Another dead woman. Emma nodded. Apparently. He looked toward Kevin. You coming? Kevin shook his head. I have 32 million reasons to stay here. Ben looked at him. That's the worst excuse I've heard all week. It's Wednesday. Exactly. Emma was already walking toward the door. Ben followed. Neither of them noticed Kevin's expression change as they left. He stared at the financial records on the screen. Then at one name. Margaret Cole, he whispered to himself. Who are you? Back at the Whitmore estate, the crime scene team had sealed off the study. Emma entered wearing gloves. Daniel Mercer stood beside the fireplace. He was holding a small evidence bag. Inside was an old photograph. Daniel looked at Emma. You're going to want to see this. Emma approached. How was it found? We removed the damaged wood panel behind the fireplace. Why? There was a draft. Ben looked at him. A draft. Daniel nodded. Apparently even dead billionaires need ventilation. Ben smiled. Emma gave him a look. He immediately stopped. Daniel handed her the evidence bag. The photograph showed a woman lying on a rooftop. Margaret Cole. Her body was twisted at an unnatural angle. Blood had pooled beneath her head, but something was wrong. Emma looked closer. That's not the Ravenwood Exchange. Daniel nodded. No. That's what we're trying to determine. Emma looked at the photograph again. A structure was visible behind Margaret. A brick wall. A large clock, and above the doorway, a sign. Emma zoomed in mentally. The letters were blurred, but enough remained visible. Emma frowned. So this is the club? Yes. When was this taken? Daniel looked at the evidence log. June 18, 2007. Emma stared at the photograph, then at Daniel. That's the night she died, according to the records. Emma looked again. Something caught her attention. Margaret's left hand. Her fingers were curled around something. A small piece of paper. Emma pointed. Can we enlarge that? Daniel nodded. We already did. He handed her another photograph, a close-up. The paper contained 4 handwritten numbers. FAR 17, 04, 92. Thurween. Ben looked at them. What does that mean? Emma shook her head. I don't know. Daniel studied the image. It could be a code, or an account number, or a combination. Ben looked at Daniel. Or the world's least useful shopping list. Daniel smiled. Emma didn't. She was looking at Margaret's face. The dead woman appeared frightened, not peaceful, not resigned. Terrified, Emma looked back at the photograph. Daniel, yes? Did you notice her eyes? He nodded. Yes. What? They're open. Emma studied the image. So Daniel's expression became serious. Her pupils aren't fixed. Emma looked at him. Meaning she may have been alive when this photograph was taken. Emma felt the room go cold. She looked at Margaret again. Then at the date, June 18, 2007. The official story said Margaret Cole had died that night, but the photograph suggested something else. Maybe she hadn't been dead when the picture was taken. Maybe she had been dying, and maybe someone had taken the photograph before pushing her. Emma lowered the evidence bag. Find out who took this photograph. Daniel nodded. We're working on it. Emma looked at the hidden compartment. Anything else? Daniel pointed toward the opening. There was one more thing. He removed another evidence bag. Inside was a small brass key. Emma looked at it. What's it for? Daniel shook his head. We don't know. Emma turned the key over. There was a number stamped into the metal. R17, the spawn, as is under Allah. Emma looked at the photograph. 17, then the handwritten code. 17, 04, 92, 31. She felt the pieces moving again. Not enough to understand. Enough to know someone had hidden something, and someone had expected somebody else to eventually find it. Emma looked toward portrait of Harold Whitmore. The same woman stood beside him, Margaret Cole. Alive. Smiling. Years after her supposed death. Emma suddenly understood one thing. The mystery wasn't simply why 5 people had died. It was why someone had spent 19 years making sure nobody asked what really happened to Margaret Cole. And if that secret was still worth killing for, then the 5 recent deaths might not be the end of the story. They might be the beginning of the cleanup. By 8 the next morning, Emma had stopped believing in coincidences. She had not stopped believing in coffee. That would have been unreasonable. She stood inside the Ravenwood Police Department archives with a paper cup in one hand and a photocopy of the 2007 Margaret Cole investigation in the other. Ben stood beside her, staring at a mountain of boxes. This is the entire archive. The records clerk nodded. Mostly. Ben looked at Emma. What's the difference between mostly and entirely? Emma took a sip of coffee. Usually about 3 missing murder files. The clerk frowned. Those aren't missing. Emma looked at him. Where are they? He pointed toward another room. Basement. Ben sighed. Of course. Emma started walking. Come on. Ben followed. If I die down there, tell my mother I was brave. I'll tell her you complained. That's close enough. The basement smelled like dust, cardboard, and old paper. Rows of shelves stretched into the darkness. Emma switched on her flashlight. Ben looked around. This is where civilization comes to die. Focus? I'm focused. You've been talking for decades? That's how I focus? Emma ignored him. They found the 2007 archive after 15 minutes. The box was marked AVUDXCXNGE. INCNC. Emma placed it on a table. Inside were police reports, photographs, witness statements, and administrative notes. At first glance, it looked complete. That was the complete. Emma had seen old case files before. Real investigations were messy, handwritten notes, contradictory statements, missing forms. Phone messages, mistakes. This file was strangely clean. She opened the first report. Officer Thomas Green responded to Ravenwood Exchange at 11:42 p.m. Jafel found on roof access landing. Name Margaret Cole. Cause presumed accidental fall. Emma stopped. Accidental. Ben leaned over. That's different. Yesterday Richard said suicide. Ben nodded. Emma turned the page. The next report said suicide. No explanation for the change. Emma frowned. Look, Ben, read it. Same officer. Yes. Same night. Yes. Then why did the classification change? Emma kept reading. Because someone added it later. A handwritten note appeared in the margin. S reclassified following consultation with Captain Harlan. Das. Ben frowned. Captain Harlan. Emma looked at the personnel page. Police captain in 2007. Where is he now? Retired.
Emma checked. Yes.
Ben smiled. That's good. And Emma looked at him. Why? Because I'd hate to interview another dead person. Emma gave him a flat look. You're developing a theme. I'm trying to keep morale up. Your methods are questionable, but effective. Emma turned the page. The witness statements began. Harold Whitmore, Thomas Avery, Daniel Reeves, 3 witnesses. Each gave nearly identical statements. Margaret had been emotionally unstable. Margaret had argued with several members. Margaret had threatened to expose financial misconduct. Margaret had climbed to the roof. Margaret had jumped. Emma read all 3 statements again. They're too similar. Ben nodded. Almost word for word? Exactly. She held up the pages. People don't describe traumatic events this neatly, unless they rehearsed. Emma looked at him, or were told what to say. She continued reading. Then she found something. A 4th witness. Samuel Cole. Ben leaned closer. Who is that? Emma checked the statement. Margaret's brother. Why wasn't he in the official witness list? Wasn't. Emma read the statement. Samuel Cole claimed he arrived at the club shortly before midnight. He said he saw Margaret alive, but he never saw her fall. He also wrote one sentence that made Emma stop. My sister told me not to trust Harold Dossie. Emma looked at Ben. Where is Samuel now? Ben checked his phone. Give me a minute. He searched. His expression changed. What? He's alive. Where? Ravenwood. Address. Ben looked at her. Funny thing. What? He owns the laundromat. Emma stared at him. The woman we spoke to yesterday. Her brother. Emma closed the file. Let's go. The laundromat was quieter than it had been the day before. The same woman stood behind the counter. She recognized Emma immediately. Back again. Wes, you find what you were looking for. Not yet. The woman sighed. Nobody ever does. Emma placed a photograph on the counter. Samuel Cole. Is this your brother? The woman looked at the picture. Her face hardened. Yes. Where is he? She pointed toward the back office. Emma walked toward the door. The woman called after her. Detective. And Emma turned. Yes. If you're asking about Margaret. She hesitated. Don't ask him about the club. Why? Hell lie. Ben looked at Emma. That's encouraging. The woman gave him a look. You think you're funny? They nodded. I've been told. She smiled faintly. That's your first mistake? Emma opened the office door. Samuel Cole sat behind a small desk. He was 72. Thin. Gray-haired. His hands trembled slightly. He looked at Emma. You found me. Yes. You should leave. Emma closed the door. Because this isn't your case. I'm afraid it is. Samuel looked toward Ben. Who's he? My partner. Samuel stared. Does he always look that tired? Ben sat down. Only when I'm awake. Samuel almost smiled. Then his expression disappeared. Emma placed the old statement on the desk. You gave this statement 19 years ago. Samuel didn't touch it. I don't remember. Your signature is here. I signed many things. You said your sister warned you not to trust Harold Whitmore. Samuel looked away. Emma waited. Finally, he said. She was afraid. Off Harold. Off all of them. Woo, the men in the club, and Emma leaned forward. What did they do? Samuel's hands tightened. They were moving money. No, you don't? What don't we know? Samuel looked at her. Margaret wasn't part of their operation. Emma frowned. Then why was she listed as a trustee? Because she was forced to be. Forced. They needed someone outside the group. Why? Because the money couldn't be traced back to them. Emma felt a familiar pressure behind her eyes. So Margaret was a front. Samuel nodded. She was the name they used. Whose money? Everyone's Tassau. Samuel shook his head. I don't know. Try. He looked at the floor. Investment accounts, insurance, shell companies, trusts. And Emma glanced at Ben. He was no longer smiling. Did Margaret discover it? Yes. What did she do? She threatened to expose them, and they killed her. Samuel didn't answer. Emma waited. Samuel. His eyes lifted. I saw her that. Live? Yes. We're in the basement. And Emma froze. The basement. Samuel nodded. There was a room underneath the club. We know about the room. You don't know what was inside. What? Files? Financial records? No. Samuel swallowed. Photographs? Emma leaned forward. What? People? Which people? The members. Doing what? Samuel's face tightened. Things they couldn't afford anyone to see. Ben looked at Emma. Emma kept her eyes on Samuel. Did you see Margaret in the room?
Yes. Is she alive? Yes.
Was she injured? Samuel's eyes, she was bleeding. Emma's voice softened. From where? Her head. Who hurt her? Samuel opened his eyes. I don't know. You saw her? Wes. You saw her bleeding. Wes. Then who was with her? Samuel stared at Emma. Daniel Reeves. And Emma felt her stomach tighten. Daniel Reeves was with Margaret? Yes. Before she died. Yes. Was he hurting her? No. Then what was he doing? Trying to help her. Emma sat back. That changed the entire case. Did you see Harold? Samuel shook his head. No. Thomas Avery. No anyone else. One person. Woo. Samuel looked toward the office door. His voice dropped. Margaret. What do you mean? I saw 2 women. The room became silent. Ben leaned forward. 2. Samuel nodded. They looked almost identical. Emma stared at him. Identical? Same height. Same hair. Same face. Ben exchanged a look with Emma. You're saying there were 2 Margaret Coles? Samuel nodded. One of them was my sister. And Emma's heart started beating faster. What happened to the other? Samuel looked down. I don't know. You must have seen. I saw one woman leave the room. Which one? I couldn't tell. Samuel, I couldn't. Emma stood. Where did they go? The stairs. Up, yes. Then Samuel shook his head. I heard a scream. Emma waited. Then a body hit the roof below. Emma's eyes narrowed. You're saying the woman who fell may not have been Margaret? Samuel nodded. I never knew. Why didn't you tell the police? Samuel looked at her. Because someone told me my children would disappear. Emma went still. Ooh, I never saw his face. What did he sound like? Samuel looked toward the floor. Calm. Emma's voice became quieter. Anything else? He knew my name? Ben asked. When did he threaten you? The next morning, after Margaret died. Samuel nodded. Then what? You told me to forget her. Emma looked at the old statement. You did. I tried. Emma stood. Did Margaret have any children? Samuel shook his head. No. A husband. Nope. Parents. Dead. Then who would inherit her estate? Samuel laughed bitterly. That's the funny part. Emma looked at him. What? She didn't have an estate. Ben raised an eyebrow. She had a $10 million life insurance policy. Samuel's face changed. Who told you that? Records. He stared at Emma. Then you should know. Know what? Margaret never bought life insurance. Emma felt the room tighten. Who did? Samuel whispered. Harold Whitmore. 2 back in the car. Emma sat silently for several minutes. Ben started the engine. Neither spoke. Finally, Ben said, 2 Margaret Coles. Emma nodded. One dies. The other disappears. Maybe. Ben glanced at her. You don't believe Samuel. I believe he saw something. That's not the same thing. No. Emma looked through the windshield. The original case file was altered. Ben nodded. 3 witnesses gave identical statements. 1 witness disappeared from the record. Margaret was apparently involved in a financial conspiracy. Then a second woman appears. Ben frowned. And someone has spent 19 years burying the evidence. Emma looked at him. Exactly. Ben was quiet. Then he said, I miss simple murders. Emma looked at him. There's no such thing. You're right. He paused. I miss simple paperwork. Emma almost smiled. Her phone rang. Daniel. She answered. Hayes. Emma, I have the preliminary examination on the photograph. What did you find? Something interesting. Go ahead. Margaret's body in the photograph wasn't photographed after death. Emma's grip tightened. What? Her blood pattern is wrong. Ben looked at her. Daniel continued. The position of the blood indicates circulation. Emma's eyes narrowed. She was alive. Yes. When the photograph was taken, correct. Emma closed her eyes for a second. That confirmed it. The photograph wasn't a crime scene photograph. It was a photograph of a living woman moments before her death. Someone had been there, watching, taking pictures. Daniel continued. There's another problem. What? The woman in the photograph isn't Margaret. Emma stared ahead. What? I compared the facial structure with the photograph from the Whitmore portrait. And, different woman. Emma felt a chill run through her. How different? Enough that I'd bet my career on it. Ben whispered. So the woman who died wasn't Margaret. Emma looked at him. No. Daniel's voice came through the phone. There's more. Emma waited. The woman in the photograph has a small scar beneath her left ear. Emma immediately thought of the portrait. The woman beside Harold. Does the woman in the portrait have it? I checked. Daniel paused. Yes. Emma's eyes widened. The portrait is Margaret. That's what it looks like. Emma looked toward Ben. Then who died? Daniel answered. That's what we're trying to determine. The call ended. Emma stared at the road. For 19 years, everyone had believed Margaret Cole died on the roof of the Ravenwood Exchange. She hadn't. A different woman had died, and somebody had made sure the world believed otherwise. Ben broke the silence. Emma. What? If Margaret was alive after 2007, he paused. Then who has been receiving the money? Emma didn't answer. She was thinking about the 5 wills, the insurance policies, the shell companies, the hidden trust, the properties, and the $46 million waiting for Margaret Cole. Then she remembered something, the missing original will. Harold had changed it 3 weeks before his death. He had named Margaret Cole. But if Margaret had been alive all these years, then perhaps Harold wasn't trying to leave her his money. Perhaps he was trying to pay her. Emma looked at Ben. Take us back to the Whitmore estate. Why? Because I think Harold left us another message. That the study had been sealed since the previous evening. Emma entered with Ben and Daniel. The portrait still hung against the fireplace. Emma walked toward it. She examined the frame. Nothing. Then the wall. Nothing. She looked at Harold's painted hand. His fingers rested against the woman's shoulder. Emma reached up. Pressed the edge of the frame. Nothing. Ben watched. Please don't tell me we're about to destroy another billionaire's artwork. Be quiet. I'm just saying, rich people tend to notice when their paintings stop being attached to walls. Emma moved her hand lower. Her fingers touched something behind the frame. A small metal latch. She pressed it. Click. The frame shifted outward. Ben stared. Well, Daniel stepped closer. That's convenient. Emma pulled the frame away. Behind it was a narrow compartment. Inside sat a single envelope. No name, no date. Only 4 numbers written on the front. 1704, 92. 3 are the same numbers from Margaret's photograph. Emma opened the envelope. Inside was 1 sheet of paper. 4 words. Shestil. Ben looked at Emma. Margaret. Emma nodded. Then she turned the paper over. On the back was another message. Rest, but she isn't the one you're looking for. Emma stared at the words. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Daniel said quietly, Who is he talking about? Emma looked toward the portrait. The woman beside Harold was Margaret Cole. The woman who supposedly died was not. And someone had spent 19 years protecting the identity of the real woman. Emma folded the note. We find Margaret. Ben nodded. And then, Emma looked at him. We ask her who the other woman was. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Inside the house, the portrait of Harold Whitmore seemed to watch them. And for the first time, Emma understood the possibility that frightened her most. Harold Whitmore might not have been investigating a murderer. He might have been trying to find the person who had been killing everyone who knew the truth. The first thing Emma did was check the envelope again. Not because she expected the words to change. Because she wanted to make sure she had not imagined them. Sheistilive as an underneath Savras, but she isn't the one you're looking for. Ben stood beside her. So we're looking for a woman who's alive, but apparently isn't the woman we're looking for. Emma folded the paper. That's what it says. Ben nodded slowly. Good. Emma looked at him. Good, no. I was just checking whether we're all equally confused. Daniel almost smiled. That's the first sensible thing you've said today. Ben looked offended. I've said several sensible things. Daniel pointed toward the hidden compartment. Name one. Ben thought about it. I said we shouldn't destroy the painting. Emma looked at him. That was sensible. Ben smiled. I knew it. Emma ignored them. She examined the compartment again. Nothing else was inside. The envelope was old. The paper was newer. Whoever had hidden it had done so recently. Probably Harold. Possibly within days of his death. Emma looked at the portrait. Harold wanted us to find this. Daniel nodded. Looks that way. Why hide it behind the portrait? Because nobody thinks to search behind a painting of a dead man. Ben glanced at the portrait. Especially when the dead man looks like he'd sue you for touching it. Emma almost smiled. Then her expression hardened. Let's find Margaret. We too. Kevin had already started working when Emma returned to the station. He had 3 screens open and a legal pad beside him. Ben walked in behind her. Please tell me you found something. Kevin didn't look up. I found several things. Useful things. That depends on your definition. Ben dropped into a chair. My definition is anything that gets me home before midnight. Kevin finally looked at him. Then no. Emma placed the photograph of Margaret on the desk. We need her current location. Kevin studied it. Current. Yes. That's going to be difficult. Why? Because Margaret Cole doesn't officially exist. Emma nodded. We know. Kevin pulled up the property records. Her name appears in databases until 2007. Then he opened another. After that, she's listed through shell companies. Can you identify one? Maybe. He enlarged a document. A company appeared, Cole Strategic Holdings, created in 2008. Owner, nominally a Delaware corporation. Beneficial owner. Kevin shook his head, buried. Emma leaned closer. Who manages it? Kevin clicked through several pages. An accounting firm in Ravenwood. Name, Whitmore and Bell. Ben looked at Emma. Bell. Emma nodded. Richard Bell. Kevin looked between them. Your lawyer. Yes. Ben sat forward. So the attorney handling Whitmore's estate also manages the company connected to Margaret. Kevin nodded. Looks like it. Emma's expression changed. Call him. Richard Bell arrived at the station 40 minutes later. He entered the interrogation room carrying his briefcase. He looked at Emma. Then Ben. Then Kevin. I assume this isn't about Harold's cat. Ben looked at Emma. He has jokes. Emma ignored him. Sit down. Richard did. Emma placed the company records on the table. Cole Strategic Holdings. Richard looked at the papers. Yes. You manage it. I manage the legal structure. Whose money? I don't know. Emma leaned forward. You're the attorney. That doesn't mean I know every beneficial owner. Whose money? Richard looked at her. Margaret Cole's bod. Emma waited. Richard sighed. Or what remains of it. Ben frowned. What does that mean? Richard removed his glasses. Margaret created the company years ago. She's alive. Richard looked at Emma. Yes. The room went silent. Ben leaned back. You knew. Richard nodded. I suspected. Emma's eyes narrowed. You told me yesterday that Margaret was dead. I told you the official record says she died. You knew that wasn't true. I suspected. Emma's voice became colder. When did you suspect? About 6 months ago. Why? Harold told me. Emma stared at him. What exactly did he say? Richard looked down. He told me Margaret had contacted him. When? Last year. How? Through a letter. Where is it? Richard hesitated. Harold destroyed it. Emma leaned forward. Of course he did. Richard looked at her. Harold was terrified. Of Margaret. No. Richard's answer came immediately. Off the people looking for her. Emma exchanged a glance with Ben. Who? Richard shook his head. I don't know. Then why help her? Because Harold believed she was innocent. Emma looked at the files. What was she innocent of? The fraud? Ben spoke. Then who committed it? Richard said nothing. Emma waited. Finally, he said. The 5 men who died. Emma stared at him. Harold included. Richard nodded. Eventually, that answer hung in the room. Emma opened the file containing the insurance policies. Why were they all insured? Richard looked uncomfortable. They weren't. These policies name Harold as beneficiary. Yes. Who arranged them? Richard didn't answer. Emma pushed the document toward him. Richard? He looked at the page. Harold. Why? I don't know. You're lying. Richard's eyes met hers. No. Emma waited. Richard finally said, Harold was running the financial operation. Ben frowned. What operation? Richard took a breath. Money laundering. Nobody spoke. Richard continued. The Ravenwood Exchange wasn't an investment. Emma nodded. We figured that out. It was a system for moving money. Whose? Clients, corporations, politicians, criminal organizations. Emma's expression hardened. Names. I don't have them. Records? Some? Yeah, we're. Richard looked at the floor. Destroyed. Ben shook his head. Everybody in this case seems to have a convenient relationship with destruction. Richard gave him a tired look. You have no idea. Emma ignored the exchange. Why was Margaret involved? She discovered the accounts and threatened to expose them. Yes. Then someone killed another woman and made everyone believe it was Margaret. Richard nodded. That's what Harold eventually discovered. Emma leaned forward. Who was the woman? Richard looked at her. I don't know. Did Harold? Richard hesitated. Yes. Emma felt her pulse rise. Who was she? I never saw her. But Harold knew. What's what he call her? Richard stared at the table. The replacement? Emma frowned. Replacement for what? Richard didn't answer. Ben leaned forward. Mr. Bell. Richard looked at him. Where is Margaret now? Richard was silent. Then he reached into his briefcase. He removed a folded piece of paper. An address. He placed it on the table. She lives here. Emma picked it up. Ravenwood, a small residential neighborhood on the western edge of the city. Why are you giving us this? Because Harold asked me to. When? The night before he died. Emma looked at him. What did he say? Richard's voice became quiet. He said if anything happened to him, I was to take you to Margaret. Why me? Richard looked directly at Emma. He said you were the only detective he believed wouldn't stop when the evidence became inconvenient. Emma didn't respond. Ben looked at her. That's almost a compliment. Emma stood. Let's go. Margaret Cole's house was small. That surprised Emma. After everything she'd heard, she expected something fortified. Instead, it was a modest brick house with a narrow porch and 2 flower pots beside the front door. No security cameras, no gate, no expensive car. Emma knocked. Nothing. She knocked again. Ben looked through the window. Someone's inside. Emma reached for her badge. Police. Margaret Cole. Silence. Then a woman's voice. Go away. Emma looked at Ben. That sounded promising. Ben nodded. Very welcoming. Emma knocked again. We need to talk. The woman answered, no, you don't. Emma stepped closer. Your name is Margaret Cole. Silence. Then, not anymore. Emma felt her pulse quicken. Can we come inside? No. Why? Because people who come looking for me usually bring trouble. Ben muttered, she's not wrong. Emma gave him a look. He shrugged. Margaret continued, who sent you? Harold Whitmore. There was a long silence. Then the lock turned. The door opened slightly. A woman stood behind it, late 60s. Gray hair, thin face, and a small scar beneath her left ear. The same scar Daniel had identified. Emma stared. Margaret Cole was alive. The woman looked at her, then at Ben, then back at Emma. You took your time. Emma stepped inside. Margaret closed the door. I've been waiting 19 years. Emma turned. For what? Margaret looked toward the window. For someone to finally ask the right question. Emma's voice was quiet. What happened on June 18, 2007? Margaret's expression changed. My sister died. Emma froze. Your sister? Margaret nodded. My name isn't Margaret Cole. Ben looked at Emma. Margaret continued. My name is Elizabeth Cole. Emma stared at her. Then who was Margaret? Elizabeth looked toward the hallway. My twin sister. The room went silent. Emma thought of the photograph. The portrait, the woman beside Harold. Two identical women. One dead, one alive. And suddenly the entire case made horrifying sense. Elizabeth looked at Emma. Margaret was supposed to expose them. Ooh. Elizabeth's eyes filled with anger. The 5 men whose deaths you're investigating. Emma felt the pieces locked together. Why are they dying now? Elizabeth looked toward the door. Because someone is finishing what they started. Emma stepped closer. Ooh, Elizabeth whispered. I don't know. Then she looked directly at Emma. But I know who will die next. Emma's stomach tightened. Ooh. Elizabeth's face went pale. Men. For several seconds, nobody moved. Emma watched Elizabeth Cole's face. There was no theatrical fear in it. No attempt to manipulate them. Just exhaustion. The kind that came from carrying the same secret for too many years. Ben was the first to speak. Why do you think you're next? Elizabeth looked at him. Because the others are dead. Emma stepped closer. Start at the beginning. Elizabeth walked toward the kitchen. She stopped beside a small table covered with unopened mail. Sit. Emma and Ben followed. Elizabeth poured herself water. Her hand trembled. Emma noticed. You're afraid. Elizabeth gave a tired smile. I've been afraid since 2007. Ben sat down. That's a long time to maintain a grudge. Elizabeth looked at him. It's not a grudge. What is a survival? That ended the humor. Emma sat opposite her. Your sister was Margaret Cole. Wes? She discovered the financial operation. She discovered something bigger. What? Elizabeth looked toward the window. The 5 men weren't just laundering money. Emma waited. They were stealing it. From whom? People who trusted them. Investors. Some. Companies? Some. Elizabeth lowered her voice. Families. Emma frowned. What kind of families? People who couldn't fight back. She paused. Harold Avery Crawford, Mason and Klein created investment accounts using other people's names. They moved money through trusts, insurance policies, and shell companies. Then they took the money. Ben shook his head. How much? Elizabeth looked at him. More than $200 million. Emma remembered the figure Harold had written. $214,700,000. That's the amount in Harold's notes. Elizabeth nodded. That's what Margaret found. What happened after she found it? She wanted to go to the police. Why didn't she? Elizabeth looked at Emma. Because Harold found out. Emma's expression hardened. He threatened her. Then what? He begged her. Emma frowned. Begged. He told her he'd help expose the others. Ben leaned forward. Did he? Elizabeth shook her head. He was protecting himself. So Margaret trusted him, at first. What changed? Elizabeth's eyes lowered. Margaret discovered the insurance policies. Emma's attention sharpened. Policies on the 5 members. No, then. Policies on Margaret. Emma stared. Harold insured her life. $10 million. Elizabeth nodded. And he was the beneficiary? Emma leaned back. That's why he needed her dead. Yes, but he didn't kill her. No. Elizabeth looked at Emma. He couldn't kill Margaret without exposing himself. So he found someone who looked like her. Elizabeth nodded. Me. Emma went still. You were the replacement. I was supposed to be. Ben frowned. Supposed to be? Elizabeth looked at him. Margaret wanted me to leave Ravenwood. Why? Because she knew they would come after both of us. So you left. I tried. Elizabeth's voice cracked slightly. Margaret called me that night, June 18. Yes? What did she say? She said she had the evidence. Emma leaned forward. Where? The club basement, the hidden room. Elizabeth nodded. She told me to meet her there? Did you? Numpo. Emma waited. Why? I was already being followed. She looked at her hands. I went to the club anyway. And Emma exchanged a glance with Ben. You arrived before Margaret died. Elizabeth nodded. I saw her? Alive. Yes. What happened? Elizabeth closed her eyes. She was bleeding. From her head? Less. Who hurt her? I don't know. Where was Daniel Reeves? Elizabeth opened her eyes. He was trying to help her. Emma nodded. Samuel told us. Elizabeth looked surprised. Samuel is still alive. Wes. For the first time, Elizabeth smiled. Good. Emma continued. What happened next? Elizabeth's face became serious again. Someone came down the stairs. Ooh, I didn't see. Male or female, male voice. Calm. Emma remembered Samuel saying the same thing. He knew your name. Elizabeth looked at her. Yes? What did he say? Elizabeth swallowed. He said, you were supposed to be the one who died. Emma felt cold. Then what? I ran. We're up the stairs. Toward the roof. Yes. Emma leaned forward. What happened to Margaret? Elizabeth looked at her. She followed me. Emma frowned. To protect me. A pause. She pushed me through a maintenance door. Emma's eyes widened. Then, someone grabbed her? Who? I don't know. Elizabeth's voice became barely audible. I heard her scream. What happened after that? I heard a body hit the roof. And Emma didn't speak. Ben did. Whose body? Elizabeth looked at him. I thought it was Margaret, but it wasn't. No. How did you survive? Elizabeth looked toward the ceiling. I hid? We're inside the maintenance shaft. Emma pictured the old clud, dark, confined. A woman hiding while someone killed her twin sister. How long? Hours. And then? I crawled out after everyone left. Emma's voice softened. You saw the body, Elizabeth nodded. It wasn't Margaret. Who was it? I don't know. Why didn't you go to the police? Elizabeth laughed bitterly. Because the police were already there. Emma remembered the altered reports. Captain Harlan. The identical statements. Someone inside the department was involved. Elizabeth nodded. Yes. Who? I never found out. Emma stood. We will. Elizabeth looked at her. You don't understand. What? They've been waiting. For what? For me to come out of hiding. Emma looked at her. Why now? Elizabeth pointed toward the folder Emma had brought. Because someone is killing the people who knew about the money. Emma's eyes moved to the 5 names. Then why didn't they kill you 19 years ago? Elizabeth hesitated. Because they thought I was dead. Emma understood. The body. Elizabeth nodded. Everyone believed it was me. Margaret was the one who survived. Knew. Elizabeth shook her head. Margaret died. Emma stopped. Then who was in the portrait? Elizabeth looked confused. The portrait. Harold's portrait. Emma pulled out her phone and showed her the photograph. Elizabeth stared. Her expression changed immediately. That's not Margaret. Emma's stomach tightened. What? Elizabeth pointed at the woman beside Harold. That's our mother. Silence. Ben looked at Emma. Emma stared at the photograph. The woman she had assumed was Margaret was neither Margaret nor Elizabeth. She was their mother. How old was your mother in 2007? 64. She died? 2009. Emma looked at Ben. The timeline was collapsing. Why would Harold have a portrait with your mother? Elizabeth looked at the image. I don't know. Emma lowered the phone. Then who was the woman in the photograph from the club? Elizabeth stared at the image. Her face went pale. Her? Emma held up the crime scene photograph. Elizabeth looked at it. Then she whispered, That's the woman who killed my sister. And Emma froze. Ben sat forward. You know, Elizabeth nodded. She was there that night. Who is she? Elizabeth stared at the photograph. I don't know her name. Then how do you know she killed Margaret? Because I saw her. Doing what? Elizabeth's voice dropped. Standing over my sister. Emma waited. What was she holding? Elizabeth looked directly at her. A syringe. The next morning, Dr. Evelyn Shaw examined the photograph. She stood in the forensic lab with her arms folded. Emma watched her enlarge the image. You're sure this isn't a post-mortem photograph? Evelyn shook her head. No. Why? Why? Blood circulation. She pointed at the wound. She was alive. Emma nodded. Could the syringe have killed her? Possibly. Ben frowned. Wouldn't that show up in an autopsy? Evelyn looked at him. If the substance was difficult to detect. Like what? Depends. Ben nodded. That's exactly the answer I was afraid of. Evelyn continued examining the image. There's something else. Emma stepped closer. What? The woman's position. What about it? Look at her left hand. Emma zoomed in. A tiny object was visible between the fingers. What's that? Evelyn studied it. A medical device. Emma looked at her. What kind? An injector? Ben frowned. Like an EpiPen? Similar? Emma stared at the photograph. Why would someone carrying a syringe also have an injector? Evelyn looked at her. Maybe the syringe wasn't for Margaret. Emma's eyes narrowed. For whom? Evelyn pointed at the blood. Look at the victim's skin. Emma did. There are no defensive wounds. Meaning, wasn't fighting. Emma frowned. Why? Because she may have known the person holding the syringe. The room went quiet. Ben looked at Emma. So Margaret trusted her. Maybe. Emma looked at the photograph again. The mysterious woman. The syringe. The injector. The missing records. The 5 deaths. Something wasn't fitting. Then Emma remembered something from the old police report. One detail she had initially overlooked. Margaret Cole had been declared dead at 11:58 p.m. Deckers. But the photograph was timestamped as 11:43 p.m. to 15 minutes before her official death. Emma looked at Evelyn. Could Margaret have survived 15 minutes after this photograph? Absolutely. Could she have survived longer? Yes. How much longer? Evelyn looked at her. Potentially hours. Emma felt the case shift again. The body on the roof might not have been Margaret. The photograph might have been taken before the death, and the official time of death might have been fabricated. Emma turned toward Ben. Get Captain Brooks. Ben picked up his phone. Already calling. Emma looked at the photograph. 5 people had died over 18 months. Each death had looked natural. Each victim had changed a will. Each had been connected to the same financial conspiracy. And now Emma knew something else. Someone had access to medical knowledge. Someone understood how to manipulate death certificates. Someone had already done it once. 19 years earlier. She looked at the photograph of the woman holding the syringe. Whoever killed Margaret may have been practicing. Ben lowered his phone. Emma. She looked at him. Brooks says she has something. What? Ben's expression had gone serious. Another death. Emma felt her stomach tighten. Who? Ben looked at the file in his hand. A woman named Susan Harlan. Emma froze. Captain Harlan's wife. Ben nodded. She died this morning. Emma stared at him. Ben swallowed. Natural causes. Then he handed Emma the report. The death certificate had been signed by the same doctor who had signed Margaret Cole's. 19 years earlier, Captain Harlan lived alone in a 2-story house on Ravenwood's east side. He had been retired for 17 years. His wife had been dead for less than 12 hours. Emma stood outside the house with Ben, staring at the front windows. The curtains were closed. A patrol car sat at the curb. Ben checked the case file again. Suzanne Harlan.
71, Emma nodded.
Cause of death, cardiac arrest. Who signed? Ben looked at the report. Dr. Paul Mercer? Emma stopped. Same doctor? According to the records of the file, the signature was identical, date June 19, 2007, and beneath it August 12, 2026. Emma stared at the 2 signatures. That's impossible. Ben looked at her. Maybe he has really good handwriting. Emma gave him a look. Ben, sorry. They entered the house. Captain Harlan was sitting in the living room. He looked older than his personnel photograph. 91. Thin. Stooped. But his eyes were sharp. He looked at Emma. You came? Yes. I've been expecting you. Emma stopped. Why? Harlan looked toward the hallway. Because eventually someone was going to ask about Margaret. Ben glanced at Emma. Emma pulled out a chair. We need to talk about June 18, 2007. Harlan nodded. I knew this day would come. You changed the classification of Margaret Cole's death. I did. Why? Because someone told me to. Ooh. Harlan looked down. Harold Whitmore. Emma's expression hardened. Why would Whitmore tell a police captain how to classify a death? Didn't. Then who? Harlan looked toward the closed curtains. Someone higher. Emma frowned. Who? Harlan whispered. The mayor. Ben looked surprised. The mayor. Harlan nodded. Back then, Ravenwood's mayor was Robert Kane. Emma wrote the name down. What did he want? Margaret's death classified as suicide. Why? I don't know. You didn't ask. Harlan gave her a bitter smile. I was told not to. Emma leaned forward. By whom? Everyone. The answer hung there. Harlan continued. Whitmore had money. Avery had connections. Crawford owned half the property in the city. Mason had the construction contracts. Klein controlled investments. He looked at Emma. They didn't need to threaten people. They bought them. Harlan nodded. Exactly. Ben sat down. And you? Harlan looked at him. I was afraid. Ben nodded. That's understandable. Harlan stared at him. You'd be surprised how quickly courage becomes expensive. Emma looked at Harlan. What happened to the evidence? Destroyed. All of it. Most. Who destroyed the medical records? Harlan shook his head. Not the police. Then who? The hospital. Emma's eyes narrowed. Why? Because Dr. Paul Mercer told them to. Emma looked at Ben. The same doctor who signed Susan Harlan's death certificate. Harlan nodded. Yes? Emma stood. Where is he? Dead?
Emma stopped.
When? 2 years ago.
Ben exhaled. Of course. Harlan gave him a faint smile. You'll get used to that. Ben looked at Emma. I don't want to. Emma almost smiled. She turned back to Harlan. Tell me about Margaret. Harlan's expression changed. She was supposed to meet Daniel Reeves. Why? She had evidence. Off the financial scheme? Yes. Did Reeves have it? Harlan nodded. He was going to take it to federal investigators. Emma felt a chill. Then why did he disappear? Harlan looked down. Because he never made it out. Who killed him? I don't know. Did you investigate? Yes. And we found his car. We're at the river. Body, no. Then why assume he was dead? Harlan looked at Emma. Because his car was burned. And Emma frowned. That's not proof. No. Harlan's voice became quiet. But inside the trunk was blood. Whose? Daniel's? Ben leaned forward. Deanna Harlan shook his head. 2007, Emma nodded. Understood. She looked at the room. You said Margaret had evidence? Yes. What kind? Names. Names of who? People receiving the stolen money? Emma frowned. Clients. Harlan nodded. Some were powerful. Politicians? Yes. Corporations? Yes. Criminal organizations? Harlan hesitated. Some. Emma closed the notebook. Where is the list? Harlan looked at her. Margaret took it. We're with her. So it's gone. No. Harlan's voice was certain. It's somewhere. At the Ravenwood Police Department, Kevin had pulled up every available record on Dr. Paul Mercer. Emma stood behind him. Anything. Kevin shook his head. Medical career was clean. Too clean. Actually, yes. Ben leaned over. How clean? No complaints. No malpractice claims. No disciplinary action. Emma frowned. That's unusual. Kevin opened another database. Wait. A property record appeared. Paul Mercer purchased a house in 2008. Paid cash. How much? Kevin displayed the amount. $2.6 million. Ben whistled. Doctor's salary. Kevin shook his head. Not enough. Emma looked at the date. 2008, 1 year after Margaret's supposed death. Trace the money. Kevin started typing. A few seconds later, he stopped. There's a problem. What? The payment came from an insurance company. Emma stared. Life insurance. Yes. Whose policy? Kevin looked up. Margaret Cole. Silence. Ben said quietly. So the doctor got paid with Margaret's insurance money. Kevin nodded. Emma felt anger building. Who was the beneficiary? Kevin opened the policy. Harold Moore. Emma closed her eyes. The same name again. Harold. Margaret. The doctor. The insurance money. The financial scheme. Everything led back to him. But Emma still couldn't understand one thing. If Harold had arranged Margaret's death, why had he spent his final months trying to expose the people responsible? She looked at Ben. Get Richard Bell. Thus Richard arrived at the station looking exhausted. Emma placed the insurance record in front of him. You knew about this. Richard looked at it. No. Paul Mercer received money from Margaret's policy. I didn't know. You're the estate attorney. I wasn't handling the policy. Who was? Richard hesitated. Harold. Again, Richard looked at Emma. Harold controlled everything. Why? Because Margaret had discovered the scheme. That's not enough. Richard leaned forward. You don't understand what Harold was trying to do. Then explain. He wanted out. Emma stared at him. Out. Yes, after stealing millions. He didn't start the operation. Who did? Richard looked toward the door. Arthur Klein. The Emma frowned. Klein. He designed the financial structure. And Whitmore. Managed it. Avery. Moved corporate funds. Crawford. Property? Mezzanine? Construction? Richard Knibe. And Margaret. She discovered them. Emma leaned back. Then why kill the other four? Richard looked at her. Because they started killing each other. Emma's expression changed. What? Once Margaret disappeared, everyone wanted control of the money. Richard's voice became quiet. Harold began moving assets. Why? To protect himself. And the others. They realized what he was doing. Emma understood. Then they turned on him. Richard nodded. That's why they changed their wills. Emma frowned. To Margaret. Richard looked at her. Exactly. Ben stepped forward. Why would dying people leave money to a dead woman? Richard smiled bitterly. They weren't leaving money to Margaret. And Emma stared at him. Then who? Richard looked directly at her. The person who controlled Margaret's identity. Emma felt a chill. Who? Richard didn't answer. His phone rang. He looked at the screen. The color drained from his face. Emma noticed. Who is it? Richard stood. I have to go. Emma grabbed his arm. Knew. He looked at her. I just got a message. From whom? Richard showed her the screen. One sentence. RTE next D&D will be EOURS. Emma's eyes narrowed. Who sent it? I don't know. Ben took the phone. Can we trace it? Kevin was already moving. Give me the number. Richard handed it over. Kevin typed. Blocked. Can you recover it? Maybe. Emma looked at Richard. Did Harold receive messages like this? Richard nodded. Several. How many? 5. Emma's eyes narrowed. Before each death? Richard looked at her. Yes. The room went silent. Did you keep them? Richard reached into his briefcase. He pulled out a small notebook. I copied them. Emma opened it. 5 messages. 5 dates. each dated shortly before one of the deaths. She read them. You should have stayed quiet. One more mistake. See, your time is coming, Art. You cannot outrun this. The socks. And the final one. You are looking in the wrong grave. Emma looked at Richard. The same message Harold received. Richard nodded. Emma turned toward Kevin. Trace the current message. Kevin looked at his screen. I have something. Everyone moved closer. A location appeared. Emma stared. It was not a phone number. It was a GPS coordinate. Ben frowned. Where is that? Kevin zoomed in. Emma recognized it immediately. The old Ravenwood Exchange property, the laundromat. Ben looked at Emma. Why would someone send a death threat from an empty building? Emma shook her head. It's not empty. She grabbed her jacket. What do you mean? Emma looked at the screen. The basement. They reached the laundromat 20 minutes later. The lights were on. The front door was unlocked. The owner wasn't behind the counter. Emma drew her weapon. Ben did the same. They moved toward the rear. The sealed concrete floor was still there, but now a section had been broken open. Fresh dust covered the ground. Someone had entered the hidden basement. Emma crouched. A trail of muddy footprints led into darkness. Ben looked at her. After you. Emma stared at him. You're supposed to be my partner. I know. Then why am I going first? Because you have better judgment. Emma looked at him. That wasn't an answer. No. She almost smiled. Then they entered. The passage was narrow. Concrete walls, old pipes. The air smelled damp. After 20 feet, they reached a metal door. Its inside was a small room, a desk, several shelves, and dozens of old files. Emma stepped inside. Ben looked around. This is the room. Emma nodded. She opened the first file. Name counts, insurance policies. Payments. She opened another. Photographs. Harold Whitmore, Thomas Avery, Linda Crawford, George Mason, Margaret Klein, Daniel Reeves, Margaret Cole, and another woman. Emma stopped. She picked up the photograph. The woman was standing beside Margaret. They were identical, except for one detail. The woman had a scar beneath her left ear. Emma looked at Ben. Elizabeth. Ben shook his head. No. He pointed at the photograph. Look at the date. Emma did. 6 June 18, 2000. See that she looked closer. Elizabeth had told them she had never entered the room that night. But the photograph proved she had, unless Emma turned the photograph over. Written on the back were 3 words. Theorek el Sarkovar. Then a sound came from behind them. A door slammed. Ben spun around. Emma. She turned. The room was empty, except for one thing. A digital recorder sat on the desk. Its red light was blinking. Emma pressed play. A man's voice filled the room. Old, calm, familiar. Harold Whitmore. If you're hearing this, I'm already dead. Emma froze. The recording continued. I lied about Margaret. A pause. I lied about Elizabeth. Emma looked at Ben. And I lied about who died that night. The recording clicked. Then Harold said the words that changed everything. The woman who fell from that roof was not Margaret Cole. A second pause. She wasn't Elizabeth either. The recording ended. Emma stared at the recorder. 3 women, 1 identity, 1 dead body, and 19 years of lies. Then, from somewhere deep inside the basement, they heard a woman's voice. Detective Hayes. Emma turned toward the darkness. The voice came again. Please, a pause. Don't let them find me. Emma raised her flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness beyond the hidden room. Police, she called. Stay where you are. The woman didn't answer. Ben moved beside Emma. That was probably unnecessary. Emma glanced at him. What? The police part. Why? Anyone hiding in a secret basement from a detective probably knows we're police. Emma ignored him. They moved deeper into the passage. A narrow corridor turned left, then right. The woman's breathing became audible. Emma followed the sound. They found her crouched behind a stack of wooden crates. She was in her late 50s. Dark hair. Thin face. A small scar beneath her left ear. Emma stopped. Ben stared. The woman looked at them, looked the photograph in Emma's hand. You found it. Emma lowered her flashlight. Who are you? The woman swallowed. Rachel Cole. Ben looked at Emma. Emma's expression didn't change. Margaret's sister. Rachel nodded. Another sister. Half's sister. And Emma crouched. How many Cole sisters are there? Rachel gave a tired laugh. 3. Ben whispered. Of course. Emma shot him a look. He raised his hands. Sorry. Rachel looked at Emma. You're not supposed to be here. Neither are you. Rachel almost smiled. Fair enough. Emma helped her stand. Why were you hiding? Because someone knew I was here. Who? I don't know. When did you come? Yesterday. Die. Why? Rachel looked toward the hidden room. I wanted the files. What files? Everything Margaret collected. Emma pointed toward the shelves. You mean these? Rachel nodded. Most of them are copies. Where are the originals? Rachel's expression changed. Somewhere safe. Where? I can't tell you. Ben sighed. Everyone in this case has an unhealthy relationship with the word safe. Rachel looked at him. You're the funny one. Apparently. Emma interrupted. Why did Harold say the woman who died wasn't Margaret, Elizabeth, or you? Rachel stared at her. Because there was another woman. The woman in the photograph. Rachel nodded. Her name was Catherine Vale. Emma repeated the name. Catherine Vale. She worked for Harold. Doing what? Accounting. Emma frowned. Why would she look like you? She didn't. Rachel pointed toward the photograph. That isn't Catherine. Emma looked again. The photograph showed a woman who resembled the Cole sisters almost perfectly. Rachel shook her head. That's my mother. Emma froze. Your mother? Yes. Ben looked at the photograph. But you said there were 3 sisters. There are. Rachel looked at Emma, and our mother was the 4th woman. Emma felt the case becoming more complicated by the second. Why did Harold use your mother's identity? Rachel shook her head. He didn't. Then who did? Rachel looked toward the ceiling. Someone who knew the Cole family. I don't know. Emma studied her. You're lying. Rachel looked directly at her. No. Then tell me what you do know. Rachel took a breath. My mother was an accountant for the Ravenwood Exchange. Emma's eyes narrowed. That would explain the records. She discovered the money. Like Margaret. Before Margaret. Rachel continued. She discovered that Harold and the others were stealing money from clients. What happened? They threatened her. Did she go to police? No. Why? Because she had 3 daughters. They threatened you. Rachel nodded. My mother disappeared in 2007. Disappeared. Officially, she left Ravenwood? Did she? Rachel looked at her. No. Emma waited. She was killed. By whom? I don't know how. Rachel shook her head. We never found her body? Ben looked at Emma. So we have a dead mother, a dead sister, a supposedly dead sister, a hidden sister, and a fake death? Rachel frowned. You're making it sound complicated. Ben stared at her. It is complicated. Rachel actually smiled. Emma almost did too. Then Rachel's face became serious. My mother was the original survivor. Emma remembered the recording. The original survivor. Rachel nodded. That's what Harold called her? Why? Because she escaped the first attempt to kill her. Emma leaned forward. When 1992. Emma looked at the handwritten numbers. 17-04-92-31 April 17, 1992. Rachel nodded. That's the date. What happened? My mother discovered the first major theft. How much? $31 million. Emma looked at Ben. The numbers. Rachel nodded. Exactly. Emma turned back. Then what's 17? The number of accounts. 4. 4 shell companies. 92. The amount stolen? Rachel shook her head. Page 92. Emma stared. Page 92 of what? The ledger. And Emma immediately turned toward the shelves. Where is it? Rachel pointed. 3rd shelf. Emma pulled down a thick black ledger. She flipped through the pages. Page 92. There was a handwritten list. 17 accounts. 4 shell companies. $31 million. And beneath them, one name. Harold Whitmorks. Emma looked at Rachel. This proves he was involved. Rachel nodded. But there's more. She pointed at the bottom of the page. Another name. There's Paul Mercer. As Emma's eyes widened. The doctor. Rachel nodded. Dr. Mercer was part of it. Ben stared at the page. The same doctor who signed Margaret's death certificate. Yes. And Susan Harlan's. Rachel nodded. Yes. Emma looked at her. Why would a doctor be involved in financial fraud? He wasn't only a doctor. Rachel's voice dropped. He was the man they used when someone needed to die. Silence. Emma felt a chill move through her. The natural causes. Rachel nodded. That was his specialty. You're back at the station, Doctor. Evelyn Shaw studied the old documents. Emma stood across from her. Could Mercer have caused a death without leaving obvious forensic evidence? Evelyn read the files. Yes. How? I'd need to know the substance. We don't. Then I can't tell you. Emma nodded. Evelyn looked up. But there's something important. What? The death certificates. Emma frowned. What about them? These causes are medically vague. Heart attack, stroke, respiratory failure. You're saying they're suspicious? I'm saying they're convenient. Evelyn pointed toward the dates. Look at the timing. Emma leaned closer. The deaths occurred after the wills changed. Less. How long? 2 weeks to 8 weeks. Evelyn nodded. That gives someone enough time to establish a pattern without making it obvious. Emma looked at the documents. Could Mercer have administered something that mimicked natural illness? Possibly. Would the autopsies catch it? Not necessarily. Emma stared at her. So the perfect murder. Evelyn shook her head. No. Emma looked up. Why not? Because there's no such thing as a perfect murder. Evelyn closed the file. Only an incomplete investigation. Ben, standing near the door, smiled. I like her. Evelyn looked at him. You shouldn't. Ben's smile disappeared. Understood. Emma almost laughed, then her phone rang. Captain Brooks? Hayes? Where are you? Station. Get to the hospital. Emma frowned. Why? Suzanne Harlan's body. What about it? The morgue technician found something. Emma grabbed her jacket. The hospital morgue was cold. Dr. Evelyn led Emma into the examination room. Susan Harlan's body lay beneath a white sheet. We received the body for a secondary examination, Evelyn said. Findings. 1 injection site. Emma stared. Where? Behind the left ear. Emma's expression changed. The same location as the scar. Evelyn nodded. Exactly. Was the injection site visible the initial examination? No. Why? Because it was hidden under the hair. Emma looked at the body. What was injected? We're waiting for toxicology. How long? Several hours. Emma nodded. Could this have caused cardiac arrest? Yes. Would it look natural? Very easily. Emma stepped back. Then Susan Harlan was murdered. Almost certainly. Emma looked at Evelyn. Who knew the old investigation? Captain Harlan? Anyone else? His wife. Emma nodded. Maybe that's why she died. Evelyn looked at her. There's another possibility. What? Suzanne may have known something Harlan didn't. Emma stared. Such as. Evelyn pointed toward the injection site. Whoever did this knew exactly where to place the needle. Emma's phone vibrated. A message. Unknown number. She opened it. A photograph appeared. Susan Harlan's body, taken inside the morgue. Emma looked around. The image had been taken minutes ago. Someone had access to the hospital. Under the photograph was one sentence. Oni more identities SS7. Emma's stomach tightened. She showed Ben. He looked at the image. Who is the witness? She was thinking about the old case. Captain Harlan, Dr. Mercer, Harvin Hargret, Elizabeth, Rachel. Then she remembered something. The original 2007 witness list contained 3 names. Harold Whitmore, Thomas Avery, Daniel Reeves. But there had been another person at the club that night, the doctor, Paul Mercer. Emma looked at Ben. Find out where Mercer was on June 18, 2007. Ben started typing. A few seconds later he stopped. What? There's a problem. What? Mercer wasn't at the club. Emma frowned. Then where was he? Ben looked at the record. Ravenwood General Hospital. Doing what? Ben swallowed. He signed the death certificate. And Emma stared. Whose? Ben looked up. Margaret Colm. Emma's eyes narrowed. What time? Ben checked. Urlazen feet 8 p.m. Emma looked at the photograph of the woman on the roof. Time a stamp. 11:43 p.m. 15 minutes earlier. Then she remembered Rachel's story. Margaret had been alive. Mercer had not been at the club. Yet he had somehow signed her death certificate. Emma felt a cold realization settle in. The doctor didn't need to witness the murder. He only needed to control what happened afterward. She turned toward Evelyn. Can you access Mercer's old medical records? Some. I need everything. Evelyn nodded. Emma turned back to Ben. And I want the hospital logs from June 18, 2007. Ben frowned. Why? Because if Mercer wasn't at the club, someone had to bring him the body. Ben stared at her. And if the body wasn't Margaret Balls? Emma finished the thought. Then someone brought Mercer the wrong woman. They left the morgue. Neither noticed the figure standing at the far end of the corridor. Watching them, the person waited until Emma disappeared around the corner. Then stepped into the examination room. The figure looked down at Susan Harlan's body. A gloved hand reached beneath the sheet. It removed the evidence bag containing the injection swab. Then the person walked away. 2-3 hours later, toxicology returned. Emma stood beside Evelyn as she read the report. Her expression became grim. What is it? Evelyn looked up. A drug. What kind? A powerful cardiac medication? Prescription?
Can it cause death?
In the right dose. Would it look like a heart attack? Yes. Emma exhaled. Can you trace where it came from? Not yet. Emma looked at the report. Then at the missing evidence bag. Someone already took the swab. Evelyn looked surprised. What? The sample from the injection site. Ooh, we don't know. Emma walked toward the door. Her phone rang. Unknown number, she answered. Hayes. A woman's voice whispered, Detective. Emma stopped. Who is this? You need to stop looking for Margaret. Who are you? A pause. You already met me? Emma's eyes narrowed. Where? The woman breathed softly. At the laundromat. The call ended. Emma stared at the phone. Ben looked at her. What happened? Emma didn't answer immediately. Then she said, Rachel wasn't the only Cole sister in that basement. Ben frowned. What do you mean? Emma looked toward the hallway. I think someone else was there. Ooh. Emma's phone vibrated again. A new message. One photograph. A woman standing outside the Ravenwood laundromat. Emma recognized her. Elizabeth Cole. But beside her stood another woman. Margaret. Alive. The timestamp was from that morning, and beneath the image were 4 words: Außen untätig, W wrongs, I steer. Emma stared at the photograph on her phone. Margaret Cole. Alive, standing outside the laundromat. Beside Elizabeth, the timestamp was less than 12 hours old. Ben leaned over her shoulder. That's Margaret. Emma nodded. According to Elizabeth, yes. Ben studied the photograph. She looks remarkably good for someone who's been officially dead for 19 years. Emma gave him a look. That's your observation. I'm trying to process the situation. Process faster. I'll work on it. Emma zoomed in. Margaret was wearing a dark coat and sunglasses. Elizabeth stood beside her. Both women were looking toward the camera. Neither appeared frightened. That bothered Emma. If Margaret had spent 19 years hiding from people who wanted her dead, she shouldn't have been standing outside a laundromat in broad daylight, unless she wanted to be seen. Emma looked at the timestamp again. 8:14 a.m. The photograph had been taken that morning. Who sent this? Unknown number. Can you trace it? Kevin is trying. Ben looked at Emma. What about Rachel? Emma frowned. She's with Olivia. Then who was the woman on the phone? Emma stared at the image. I don't know. Her phone rang. Kevin, tell me you have something. I have a location. Emma straightened. Where? The photo was uploaded through a public Wi-Fi network. Which one? The laundromat. Ben sighed. Of course. Kevin continued. But the phone itself wasn't there. The Emma frowned. Meaning? Someone used the network remotely. Can you trace the device? Not yet. Emma looked at Ben. We're going back. The laundromat was empty when they arrived. The front door was unlocked. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Emma walked behind the counter. Hello. No answer. Ben looked around. I've officially developed a hatred for laundromats. You didn't like them before. Now it's personal. And Emma ignored him. She checked the office. Empty. The basement entrance was still open. She drew her weapon. Ben did the same. They descended. The hidden room looked exactly as they had left it. Except for one thing. The files were gone. Every single file. Emma stopped. Someone beat us here. Ben looked around. How? The room was sealed. Not very well. Emma walked toward the desk. The recorder was still there. She pressed play. Harold's voice filled the room. If you're hearing this, I'm already dead. Then the recording stopped. Ben frowned. That's it. Emma checked the recorder. The battery was dead. Someone erased the rest. Can you recover it? Kevin can. Emma looked at the floor. Fresh footprints. Several led toward the rear wall. Emma followed them. There was no door. Then she noticed a section of brick that looked newer. She touched it. Loose. Ben. He came over. Together they pushed. The panel moved. Behind it was another narrow passage. Ben stared. Of course there's another secret passage. Emma looked at him. You sound surprised. I'm running out of complaints. That's impossible. They entered. The passage ended at a small metal door. Emma opened it. They stepped into an alley behind the laundromat. No one was there, but on the ground sat a small object. Emma crouched, a silver bracelet engraved with one word. Margaret Ausenru. Ben looked at it. Could be hers. Emma shook her head. Maybe. She turned it over. There was a tiny inscription inside. Ash for EC. 2007. Emma stared. Elizabeth Cole? Oh, Ben nodded. So Margaret gave this to Elizabeth. Apparently, Emma slipped it into an evidence. Per phone rang. Captain Brooks. Hayes, where are you? Laundromat? Again? Well, found another passage. Brooks sighed. Of course you did. Emma almost smiled. What happened? I've got Rachel here. She's safe. For now. Where's Elizabeth? Silence. Emma's expression changed. What? Elizabeth is gone? Emma's stomach tightened. What do you mean gone? She was in the interview room. Was? Someone triggered the fire alarm. Brooks continued. During the evacuation, she disappeared. Emma looked at Ben. Did anyone see her leave? One officer? Who? He says she was with a woman? Emma went still. Who? Brooks hesitated. He says it was Margaret. The two at the station. Rachel sat in a secure interview room. She looked exhausted. Emma entered. Where's Elizabeth? Rachel stared at her. I don't know. Who took her? I don't know. You were with her. Yes. Then tell me what happened. Rachel looked toward the observation window. She received a phone call. From whom? She wouldn't say. What did she say? She said Margaret was outside. Emma sat down. Did you see her? Rachel shook her head. Elizabeth did. Then why did she leave? Rachel's face tightened. Because Margaret told her to. Emma leaned forward. Why? Rachel looked at her. She said it was time. For what? Rachel didn't answer. Emma waited. Finally, Rachel said for the truth. He too. Kevin recovered part of the deleted recording 40 minutes later. Emma and Ben listened in the digital lab. Harold's voice returned. If you're hearing this, I'm already dead. Static. Then, I lied about Margaret. More static. I lied about Elizabeth. A long pause. Then Harold continued. But the person I never told you about is Catherine Vale. Emma looked at Kevin. Catherine. The name from Rachel. Harold continued. Catherine was the accountant who discovered the original theft. The static. She was supposed to die in 1992. Emma leaned closer. Supposed to. The recording continued. She survived. Ben frowned. That's Rachel's mother. Emma nodded. Harold's voice became weaker. She disappeared after the first attempt. Static. Margaret found her 19 years later. Emma's eyes widened. Margaret found Catherine. Kevin nodded. Harold continued. They worked together. Emma stared at the speaker. The women weren't victims. A static. They were collecting evidence. The recording broke up. Then Harold said something that made Emma freeze. The 5 deaths weren't murders committed by the same person. Ben looked at her. What? Harold continued. They were consequences. The recording ended. Emma stared at the recorder. Ben shook his head. That's not helpful. Kevin looked at them. I have the final 30 seconds. He played it. Harold's voice returned. Someone is killing them now. A pause. But not for the money. Another pause. It's because they know who really killed Margaret. The recording ended. Emma sat back. Ben looked at her. So the 5 natural deaths weren't the original plan. No. Someone is eliminating witnesses. Emma nodded. Which means the person responsible for Margaret's death is still alive. Kevin turned toward them. I found something else. He opened a database. A hospital record appeared as Ravenwood General, June 18, 2007. Patients 1,000 female. Unidentified. Issued admission if relevant and 51 p.m. Discharged 12:37 a.m. Emma stared. Discharged. Kevin nodded. Alive. Ben stepped closer. Who signed the release? Kevin opened the record. Dr. Paul Mercer. Doc, and Emma's expression hardened. Who was the patient? None. Any physical description? Kevin pulled it up. Female. Approximately 64 years old. Emma froze. Catherine Vale had been 64 in 2007. That's her. Ben looked at Emma. So Catherine survived. Kevin nodded. But there's something strange. What? The patient was admitted at 11:51. Emma looked at him. That's before Margaret's official death. Correct. And discharged at 12:37. And yes, where did she go? Kevin opened the transport record. There wasn't one. Emma frowned. No ambulance. New taxi. New private vehicle. Nothing. Then how did she leave? Kevin looked at the screen. Someone signed her out. Who? He enlarged the signature. Emma stared. The signature was unmistakable. Harold Whitmore. Ben slowly exhaled. Harold rescued her. Emma shook her head, or he helped her disappear. The next morning, Emma met with Dr. Evelyn Shaw. Evelyn had reviewed the old hospital documents. Catherine Vale wasn't listed as a patient. Why? Because the record was deliberately altered. Can you prove it? Evelyn handed Emma a photocopy. Look at the admission number. And Emma did. The number didn't match the hospital's sequence. It was inserted later. Exactly. Can you determine who did it? Someone with administrative access. Could Mercer? Yes. Emma nodded. Then Mercer helped Catherine disappear. Pockley. Emma looked at the document. What about Margaret? Evelyn paused. The official death certificate says Margaret died at 11:58. But the body? No reliable identification. Emma's eyes narrowed. Meaning? Nobody actually confirmed the body was Margaret. Emma stared at her. Then what did they identify? Evelyn looked at the photograph. That's the question. That evening, Emma returned home. She was exhausted. The case had become a maze of identities, dead women, secret rooms, hidden money, and people who apparently refused to remain dead. She dropped her keys on the table. A noise came from the kitchen. Emma froze. She reached for her weapon. Then a ginger cat appeared around the corner. Emma stared at it. The cat stared back. You're not supposed to be here. The cat blinked. Emma lowered her weapon. Great. Another witness. The cat walked past her. Emma shook her head. I don't have time for you. The cat jumped onto the chair. Emma stared at it. You're very confident for someone trespassing. Her phone rang. Captain Brooks. Emma answered. Hayes. Where are you? Home. Don't stay there. Emma's expression changed. Why? We found Elizabeth. Where? Brooks hesitated. At the old cemetery. Emma stood. Leave. No. Emma went still. What happened? Heart attack. Emma's grip tightened. Natural. That's what it looks like. Emma closed her eyes. Who found her? Rachel. Emma was silent. Then Brooks silent. Then Brooks something else. What? Elizabeth's body was found beside a grave. Emma's voice became quiet. Whose? Brooks answered. Margaret Cole. Emma stared at the wall. That's impossible. I know. Margaret's grave. Yes. Open. No bow. Then why was Elizabeth there? Brooks paused. Because someone had left a message on the gravestone. What message? Brooks read it. Ona kolidius oni kolivis. T-H-E-T Scheider Kroll Kiendus Dewey H-Y Emma felt a chill. 3 sisters, Margaret,
Elizabeth, Rachel, one dead.
one dead again, one alive. But the message said the third Cole knew why. Emma thought of Catherine, then of Harold's recording, then of the woman in the photograph. Someone had spent 19 years hiding the truth, and now they were killing the people who could reveal it. Emma grabbed her jacket. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. She answered. No one spoke. Then a woman's voice whispered, "Detective Hayes." Emma stopped. "Who is this?" The woman breathed softly. "You've been looking for Margaret."
Yes.
"Stop." "Why?" A pause. "Because Margaret isn't the one who's in danger." Emma's eyes narrowed. "Who is?" The woman answered, "Rachel." The line went dead. Emma immediately called Captain Brooks. No answer. She called the station. No answer. Then her phone displayed an incoming video call from Rachel's number. Emma answered. The screen showed Rachel sitting alone in a dark room. Her face was bruised. Her hands were tied. She looked directly into the camera. Then someone stepped behind her. A woman, gray hair, thin face, a small scar beneath her left ear. Margaret Cole. Alive, she leaned toward the camera and whispered, "Detective Hayes, a pause. Now you know why they had to kill my sisters." The screen went black. Emma called the number again. Nothing. She called Captain Brooks. This time Brooks answered. "Hayes, Rachel has been taken. We know." Emma stopped. "You know, her phone was found near the cemetery. She's alive." A pause. "How do you know?" "She just called me." "From her phone."
Yes.
Brooks swore quietly. "That's impossible." "Why?" "Rachel's phone has been in evidence for 20 minutes. Emma went still. "Then whoever called me has another phone." "Where are you?" "Home." "Stay there." Emma was already grabbing her keys. "No. Emma, Rachel's alive." "We don't know that." "I saw her." "You saw a video." "Exactly. That could have been recorded earlier." Emma stopped. Brooks was right. She hated that. "Send me the video." "I already did." Emma opened the message. She watched it again. Rachel was tied to a chair, bruised, terrified. Behind her stood Margaret. But Emma noticed something. Margaret wasn't looking at Rachel. She was looking directly at the camera. And there was something on the wall behind them. A clock. Emma froze. "Olivia?" "Yeah." "Where was the video recorded?"
We're tracing it.
"Don't." Brooks paused. "What?" "Look at the clock." The Emma zoomed in. The hands showed 3:17. "That's not the current time." "How do you know?" "Because it stopped." Emma studied the room. There was a second detail. A metal pipe, painted blue. A small yellow number beside it. A 17 number. Emma suddenly remembered the key found behind Harold's fireplace. Number 17. The basement. Brooks was silent. "The old Ravenwood Exchange. We searched it." "You searched the main basement." "There's another section." Emma looked at Ben. He had arrived at her house without her noticing. She ended the call. "How did you get here?" Ben held up his phone. "You called me." "I didn't." "You called 3 times. Emma checked her phone. She hadn't. Ben frowned. "Okay." Emma showed him the video he watched. "That's not Liv." "No." "Clock. 3:17. Ben looked at the pipe. "Number 17? Emma nodded. "Let's go." Ben grabbed his jacket. "You know, most detectives wait for backup. We're not most detectives." "That's true." He followed her toward the door. "And most detectives don't investigate murders involving dead twins in secret basements." Emma looked back. "Keep talking." "I'm keeping morale up." The old Ravenwood Exchange was surrounded by police tape when they arrived. The main entrance was empty. Emma walked toward the rear alley. Ben followed. "How do you know where you're going?" "I don't." "Excellent." They reached the hidden entrance. The brick panel was open. Emma stepped inside. Her flashlight moved across the corridor. Nothing. No Rachel. No Margaret. No movement. Then Ben pointed. "Look." A small electrical cable ran along the wall. Emma followed it. It disappeared behind a metal panel. She opened it. A switch. She pressed it. A light flickered on deeper inside the basement. Emma and Ben exchanged a look. "That's inviting," Ben said. They continued. The corridor opened into a larger room. Old equipment covered the walls. There were shelves. Medical supplies. A rusted examination table. Emma stopped. "This isn't a financial records room." Ben looked around. "No. It's a clinic." On the far wall was a cabinet. Emma opened it. Inside were dozens of medical files. She pulled one out. Margaret Cody docs and pass on another. Ella Zibie Cole another. Being stared. Why would they have medical records on all 3 sisters? Emma opened Margaret's file. Her birth date, blood type, medical history. Then a page marked at TS80Y Transfer columns. Emma frowned. "What the hell is this?" Ben leaned closer. "I was hoping you'd know." Emma turned the page. There were in photographs, signatures, medical notes, and one sentence underlined twice. As physical resemblance is sufficient for emergency substitution, Decima felt sick. This wasn't just about money. No. They were replacing identities. Ben looked around. Why? Emma continued reading. The next page explained it. The Ravenwood Exchange had created false identities for people who needed to disappear. Witnesses, criminals, clients, politicians, anyone willing to pay. They used medical records, financial accounts, and legal documents to make one person appear to be another. Margaret Cole had been part of the system. Then she discovered what it was really being used for. Emma turned another page. There was a photograph. 3 women. Margaret, Elizabeth, Rachel, and beside them stood a fourth. Catherine Vale. Emma stared. These women weren't just witnesses. Ben nodded. They were assets. Emma looked at the medical records. And someone has been using their identities for almost 20 years. A noise came from behind them. Emma spun. Nothing. Then a voice came from the darkness. You're getting close. Emma raised her weapon. Come out. A woman stepped into the light. Margaret Cole. Alive. She looked exactly like the woman in the photograph. Ben raised his weapon. Hands where we can see them. Margaret slowly raised her hands. Don't shoot. Emma stared at her. Where is Rachel? Margaret looked at her. Safe. I won't tell you. Emma stepped closer. Elizabeth is dead. Margaret's face tightened. I know. Did you kill her? No. Who did? Margaret looked away. The same person who killed the others. Ooh, I don't know. Emma lowered her weapon slightly. Then tell me what you do know. Margaret took a breath. The 5 people who died recently were not random. We know. They were being blackmailed. By whom? Someone who had the original records. Which records? The identity files. Emma looked around the room. These. Margaret nodded. Those files contain the real history of the Ravenwood Exchange. Who has them now? Someone took them. When? Yesterday. Emma frowned. Who? Margaret looked directly at her. Harold went still. Harold is dead? Less. Then how could he take them? He didn't. Margaret stepped closer. Someone used his identity. Emma understood. Someone is pretending to be Harold. Margaret nodded. Or someone who was Harold. Ben frowned. What does that mean? Margaret looked at him. Harold Whitmore wasn't always Harold Whitmore. Silence. Emma stared. Explain. His real name was Michael Vale. Emma's eyes widened. Catherine's husband. Margaret nodded. Yes. Ben looked at Emma. So Harold was using another man's identity. Margaret continued. Michael Vale died in 1991. Emma remembered the date, the first theft, the beginning. What happened to the real Harold Whitmore? Margaret's expression became grim. He was murdered. By Michael. Wes. Emma stared at her. Then the man who built the Ravenwood Exchange wasn't Harold. Who was he? Margaret answered. Michael Vale. Emma felt the pieces finally connect. Catherine's husband, the identity thief, the financial architect, the man who had assumed Harold Whitmore's identity, and possibly the person who had begun the entire operation. Why did Catherine survive? Because she discovered what he had done. And your mother? Margaret shook her head. Catherine wasn't my mother. Emma frowned. Rachel said. Rachel was protecting Catherine. Emma stopped. Why? Because Catherine was alive. But Rachel said she died. She had to. Emma stared. Why? Margaret looked at the files. Because Catherine was the only person who knew Michael's real identity. Emma felt a chill. So Catherine Vale is still alive. Margaret nodded. Yes. Margaret didn't answer. Emma stepped closer. Margaret, I can't tell you. Why? Because she has the original ledger. Emma's eyes narrowed. And that's what everyone wants. Margaret nodded. The ledger contains every identity change, every payment, every murder. Ben looked at her. Murder? Margaret nodded. The 5 natural deaths were only the latest. Emma's voice became quiet. How many? Margaret looked at her. 23. Ben stared. 23? Margaret nodded. Over 19 years. Emma thought of the deaths. All natural, all unexplained, all connected by money. The case had just become much larger. Why are they killing the 5 now? Margaret's expression changed. Because someone found the ledger. Who? Margaret looked at Emma. Your killer. Suddenly, the lights went out. Ben raised his weapon. Emma turned toward Margaret. Stay where you are. A metallic door slammed somewhere in the corridor. Then another. Someone was locking them in. Ben moved toward the exit. Locked. Emma tried the door. Nothing. Margaret looked terrified. He's here. Ooh, she whispered. Michael. Emma stared at her. Michael is dead. Margaret shook her head. No. A voice came through the intercom. Calm. Male. Familiar. Good evening, Detective Hayes. And Emma froze. She had heard that voice before. On Harold's recording. The voice of Harold Whitmore. But Harold was dead. The voice continued. You've been asking very difficult questions. Emma looked at Margaret. Michael. Margaret nodded. The intercom crackled. You should have left this alone. Emma stepped toward the speaker. You're Michael Vale? A soft laugh came through. That name hasn't been used in a very long time. Ben looked at Emma. Then what's your name now? The voice answered, no, Harold Whitmore. Emma felt her blood run cold. The man who died wasn't Harold Nupo. Who was he? A pause. A decoy. Margaret closed her eyes. Emma understood. The funeral, the body, the death certificate. The entire thing had been staged. Why kill him? He became unreliable. Emma's jaw tightened. What about the 5 retirees? They became dangerous. You murdered them. No. The voice was calm. They died naturally. And Emma stared at the speaker. You manipulated their deaths. There's a difference, not to their families. Silence. Then Michael said, Detective, you still think this is about money? Emma waited. It's about identity. A pause. Money can be replaced. Another pause. People cannot. Emma looked at Margaret. Where is Catherine? Michael laughed softly. Ask Margaret. Emma turned. Margaret had disappeared. Margaret. Nothing. The room was empty. Ben stared. How did she get out? Emma looked toward the wall. A hidden door stood open. Margaret had escaped. Then Emma noticed something on the floor. A single piece of paper. She picked it up. One sentence. She fiancaira biafrera maxail da wisasi. Ben looked at her. That's not ominous at all. Emma folded the paper. No. She looked toward the hidden passage. It's a warning. A second later, the lights came back on. The intercom was silent. Michael was gone. But Emma knew one thing now. The man who had spent 19 years hiding behind Harold Whitmore's identity was still alive. And he wasn't running. He was watching them. Emma stood in the middle of the underground room, staring at the empty doorway where Margaret had disappeared. Ben checked the corridor. She's gone. Emma nodded. I noticed. I was just confirming. You always confirm the obvious. Only when I'm under pressure. Emma looked at him. You're always under pressure. Exactly. I'm very thorough. Despite everything, Emma almost smiled. Then she looked at the files scattered across the desk. The humor disappeared. Michael Vale was alive. Harold Whitmore was dead. Or at least, someone had died under Harold Whitmore's name, and someone had been using the Whitmore identity for decades. Emma picked up the photograph of Michael. The picture was old. A younger man. Dark hair. Sharp features. A confident smile. Beside him stood Catherine Vale. Emma stared at the couple. If Michael became Harold in 1991, Ben finished the thought. Then who was Harold Whitmore? We need to find out. Lelu Kevin Chen had the answer before Emma returned to the station. He looked exhausted. There were 4 coffee cups beside his keyboard. Emma counted them. How long have you been here? Kevin looked at the cups. That's classified. Ben pointed. 4, 5. Where's the 5th? Kevin pointed toward the trash. I made a mistake. And Emma raised an eyebrow. With the coffee. With my life choices. Ben nodded. Finally, some honesty? Emma placed the photograph on Kevin's desk. Find Michael Vale. Kevin studied it. That's not difficult. Find his death. Kevin looked up. That's more difficult? Why? Because Michael Vale officially died in 1991. How? Car accident. Body? Kevin shook his head. Burned beyond recognition. And Emma and Ben exchanged a glance. Identification? Dental records. Emma frowned. Whose dental records? Kevin turned his monitor toward them. Michael Vale. Emma stared at the screen. Where did those records come from? Kevin clicked. Ravenwood General Hospital. Ben leaned forward. Same hospital. Kevin nodded. Same hospital where Dr. Paul Mercer worked. Emma felt a familiar knot tighten in her stomach. Who signed the identification? Kevin opened the document. Dr. Paul Mercer. Emma closed her eyes. Of course. Kevin looked at her. There's more. Go. Michael Vale's death occurred on April 17, 1991. Emma immediately remembered the numbers 17, 18, 19, 20. Ben noticed. 1 year off. Emma nodded. The number sequence wasn't a date. Kevin opened another file. Correct? He displayed the old ledger. Sir 17 accounts, 4 shell companies, page 92, $31 million. Emma stared. The numbers were instructions. Looks like it. Who wrote them? Kevin enlarged the handwriting. Margaret. Emma frowned. You're sure? I compared it with her signature. Kevin pulled up another document. Same handwriting. Emma looked at the page. Why would Margaret leave those numbers? Maybe she wanted someone to find page 92. Ben pointed at the ledger. Which we did. Kevin nodded. And page 92 contains something interesting. He opened it. A list of 17 accounts. The names of shell companies. Then one line at the bottom. OCXUNT 17. Vale Famal Rus. Emma stared. What's the balance? Kevin entered the account number. His expression changed. That's impossible. What? The account is still active. Emma leaned closer. How much? Kevin swallowed. $214,700,000. Emma looked at Ben. The exact number Harold had written. The entire missing fortune. It had never disappeared. It had been sitting in an account for decades. Ben stared at the screen. So everyone killed each other of money they never actually lost. Emma shook her head. Not everyone. What? Someone still controls it. Kevin nodded. That's the bigger question. Emma pointed toward the account. Ooh. Kevin began tracing the ownership. A series of corporations appeared, then trusts, then offshore entities. Every trail eventually ended at one company, S. Vale Strategic Holdings. Sess and Emma looked at Kevin. Owner. Unknown. Keep going. How Kevin followed another chain, a bank in Switzerland, a holding company in London, a private trust in the Cayman Islands. Then finally a domestic account, Ravenwood. The beneficiary was listed as heirs of C. Vale. Emma stared. Kevin nodded. Looks like it. Ben leaned back. So Catherine has the money. Or controls it. Then Michael wants the ledger because it exposes him. Emma nodded. And Catherine has the original. Ben looked at Emma. Where is she? Emma thought about Margaret's warning. Find Catherine before Michael does. We need Rachel. Rachel was still at the station. She looked up when Emma entered. Is Margaret alive? Yes. Rachel closed her eyes. Thank God. She disappeared. Rachel gave a weak smile. That's Margaret. You expected that. She's been disappearing for 19 years. And Emma sat across from her. We found evidence that Catherine Vale is alive. Rachel's expression changed. Where? We don't know. Then she's in danger. Why? Because Michael knows about the ledger. Emma leaned forward. Tell me about Michael. Rachel hesitated. He was my mother's husband. Your father? Rachel nodded. Until he wasn't. Emma waited. He changed. How? He became obsessed with money. Was he violent? Rachel looked down. Not at first. Then, he began bringing people into the house. Men from the exchange. Harold Whitmore. Before he became Harold, Rachel swallowed. Michael wasn't his real name either. Emma frowned. What? His real name was Daniel Vale. Emma stopped. Daniel. Rachel nodded. The man everyone called Michael was actually his brother. Emma stared. So who became Harold? Rachel looked directly at her. Daniel? Emma felt the case shift again. Then who was Michael? Rachel shook her head. That's the problem. Explain. The brothers switched identities. And Emma sat back. When? 1991. Why? One of them was supposed to die and looked at Ben. Ben was already taking notes. Which brother? Rachel shook her head. I don't know. Emma's eyes narrowed. You don't know? I was young? How young? 16. Emma softened slightly. Okay, Rachel continued. My mother discovered the identity scheme. How? She found 2 passports. Both belonging to the same person. Rachel nodded. Then she found 4. Emma understood. The exchange wasn't only laundering money. No. They were manufacturing identities. Rachel nodded. People paid to disappear. And the brothers were part of it? Wes. Which brother became Harold? Rachel looked toward the observation window. I don't know. Emma frowned. But Michael Vale is the name we have. That's the name they wanted you to find. Emma went still. What do you mean? Rachel looked at her. The dead man in 1991 wasn't Michael. Emma stared. The body was Daniel. Maybe? Then who survived? Rachel's voice dropped. I don't know. Emma felt frustration rising. We need something concrete. Rachel nodded. There is one thing. What? My mother kept a photograph. Of the brothers. Wes! Where? Rachel looked toward her coat. In the pocket. I frowned. Rachel smiled faintly. I didn't exactly expect to get kidnapped twice this week. Ben glanced at Emma. She's got a point. Rachel pulled out a folded photograph. Emma opened it. 2 identical men stood beside Catherine Vale. One wore a dark suit. The other wore a gray jacket. Emma stared. Can you tell them apart? Rachel nodded. The one on the left had a scar. Emma zoomed in. A small scar beneath the right eye. The one on the left? Yes. Emma looked at the photograph, then at the hospital records, then at the old photograph of Harold. She suddenly remembered something. Harold Whitmore's portrait. His face, the woman beside him, and the tiny mark near his eye. Emma searched the photograph. There it was, a faint scar. Beneath the right eye. She looked at Ben. We've been looking at the wrong brother. Wakyu, Captain Olivia Brooks, joined them in the conference room. Emma placed the photographs on the table. The man who became Harold Whitmore was Daniel Vale. Brooks looked at the photograph. You're sure? No. Emma pointed to the scar. But we're close. Brooks folded her arms. What about Michael? Possibly dead? Possibly? Nothing in this case stays dead. Ben nodded. That's becoming our unofficial motto. Brooks gave him a look. He stopped talking. Emma continued. The account containing the stolen money is still active. How much? $214,700,000, Brooks stared. That's the amount from Whitmore's notes. Yes. Who controls it? Catherine Vale? Brooks looked surprised. The mother. Apparently? Where is she? We don't know. Brooks thought for a moment. Then find her. Emma nodded. There's another problem. What? Someone is killing the people connected to the original operation. Brooks looked at the list. 5 dead, plus Elizabeth. 6. Possibly more. Brooks looked at her. How many original participants? 23. Brooks's expression hardened. Then we have a lot of potential victims. Emma nodded. Unless the killer isn't targeting everyone. What do you mean? Emma pointed to the names. The 5 recent deaths all changed their wills. Brooks nodded. Toward Margaret. Exactly. Why? Because someone wanted Margaret's identity restored. Brooks frowned. Why? Emma looked at the photograph of the brothers. Because whoever controls Margaret's identity may control the money. Ben suddenly looked up. Emma. What? There's something wrong with the 5 wills. Emma turned. The dates. No. Ben pointed at the beneficiary section. Margaret Cole. Then he pointed at another document. Cole Strategic Holdings. Emma frowned. They're different? Exactly. Then placed the papers side by side. The wills don't leave money directly to Margaret. Emma looked closer. Each will instructed the executor to transfer the inheritance into a trust. The trust was named Collar's Cause Cole Family Restoration Trust. Emma stared. What's the trustee? Ben pointed. Ask Catherine Vale. Emma's eyes widened. That's it? Brooks looked confused. What? Emma stood. The 5 people weren't leaving their money to Margaret. They were funding Catherine. Ben nodded. And Catherine controls the ledger. Emma looked at the clock. We need to find her? Kevin entered the room. He was holding a sheet of paper. I might have. Emma turned. Where? Kevin handed her the paper. An address. A private nursing facility on Ravenwood's outskirts. Patient name Ergis Catherine Vale. Emma looked at the date admitted 3 months ago. Under medical supervision. Alive, her eyes moved to the attending physician. That's Dr. Paul Mercer. Emma stared. Mercer died 2 years ago. Kevin nodded. That's what the public record says. Emma looked at him. Then who signed Catherine's admission? Kevin hesitated. A signature appeared on the form. Paul Mercer. Emma felt the cold realization hit. The doctor who had supposedly died 2 years ago had admitted Catherine 3 months earlier, which meant one of 2 things. The records were wrong, or someone was still using Dr. Mercer's identity. Emma grabbed her jacket. Let's go. Ben followed. Do we have backup? Brooks answered. You do now. Emma looked at the team gathering behind them. For the first time in days, she felt they might actually be ahead of the killer. Then Kevin's phone rang. He answered. His expression changed. What? Everyone looked at him. Kevin slowly lowered the phone. The nursing facility. Emma stopped. What about it? There's been a death. Her face tightened. Ooh. Kevin looked at the address in his hand. Catherine Vale. Silence. Emma stared at him. When? 20 minutes ago. Kevin swallowed. Natural causes. Emma closed her eyes. The killer had beaten them again. But then Kevin added one sentence. There's just one problem. Emma opened her eyes. What? Kevin looked at her. The facility says Catherine Vale checked out yesterday. Emma stared at Kevin. Catherine checked out yesterday. According to the facility. And someone died in her room 20 minutes ago. Kevin nodded. Who? Unidentified female. Ben rubbed his forehead. At this point, I'm beginning to think Ravenwood has a shortage of normal people. Emma ignored him. Get us the facility records. Kevin nodded. Already requested. Don't wait. He turned back to his computer. Emma looked at Olivia. Locked down the facility. Already doing it. Nobody leaves. Brooks nodded. Don't. Emma turned toward Ben. Let's go. The nursing facility was 15 minutes away. Police vehicles already surrounded the entrance. Emma and Ben entered through the side door. A frightened administrator met them. Detective Hayes. Where is Catherine Vale's room? 2nd floor. Who was the woman who died? We don't know. How did she get here? The administrator swallowed. She was brought in yesterday. By whom? 2 men? Names. They said they were family. Emma looked at Ben. Did you check identification? Yes. Real. The administrator hesitated. We assumed so. Ben muttered. That assumption is getting expensive. Emma walked toward the elevator. Let's see the body. The room was small. A bed. A chair. A television. A window overlooking the parking lot. The dead woman lay beneath a sheet. Dr. Evelyn Shaw was already there. She looked at Emma. You're going to want to see this. The Evelyn pulled back the sheet. The woman was approximately 65. Gray hair. Thin face. Emma stared. The woman looked familiar. Not because she had seen her before, because she had seen someone who looked exactly like her. Catherine. Evelyn shook her head. Numb. Emma stepped closer. Oh, we don't know? Ben looked at the woman. She looks like the woman from the photograph. Emma nodded. The one who died in 2007. Evelyn looked at her. Exactly. Emma frowned. That's impossible. Welcome to the case. Ben gave Evelyn a look. You're getting funnier. I'm getting tired. I'm getting Zam in the neck. There's an injection site. And Emma's expression hardened. We're behind the left ear. The same location. Again. Emma looked at the medical chart. Kaz. Not yet. But you're thinking cardiac arrest?
Yes.
Emma stepped back. The killer used the same method. Evelyn nodded. Probably. Prabha looked around the room. Anything missing? The administrator stepped forward. Catherine's files. All of them. Everything. Her belongings. Also gone. Who packed them? We don't know. When Emma turned toward Ben, get the security footage. The security room was on the ground floor. Kevin had accessed the system remotely. He displayed the footage. Yesterday at 8:06 p.m., 2 men entered Catherine's room. Both wore dark coats. One carried a medical bag. The other carried a small suitcase. Emma watched. Pause. Kevin froze the frame. One man's face was visible. Emma enlarged it. She recognized him. Richard Bell. Ben stared. The lawyer. Emma nodded. Why would Richard Bell be here? Kevin continued the footage. The second man turned toward the camera. Emma froze. She knew him too. Dr. Paul Mercer. Ben stared. But Mercer is dead. Apparently not. Richard Bell was found 40 minutes later at his office. He was sitting behind his desk. He looked exhausted. Emma entered. Where were you last night? Richard didn't answer. Ben closed the door. Emma placed a photograph on the desk. Richard looked at it. His face fell. You found them? Les. Then it's over. New. Emma leaned forward. It's just beginning. Richard stared at her. Mercer is alive. Richard closed his eyes. That was not supposed to happen. Emma's expression hardened. Explain. Richard opened his eyes. I didn't know he was alive. You were with him yesterday. I thought he was dead. Then why did you go to Catherine's room? Richard looked at the photograph again. Because I was told to. But whom? He hesitated. Harold. Emma stared at him. Harold is dead? I know. Then who gave you the order? Richard's voice became quiet. I don't know. Emma placed another photograph on the desk. Michael Vale. Who is this? Richard looked at it. Michael? Real name? Daniel. Emma frowned. Daniel Vale. Richard nodded. He was Harold Whitmore. Emma looked at him. So you knew. I suspected. Everyone in this case suspects everything. Richard looked tired. That's because everyone is afraid. Afraid of whom? Richard leaned back. Daniel? Emma paused. You mean Michael? Call him whatever you want. Where is he? I don't know. Where is Catherine? I don't know. Who killed the woman at the facility? Richard didn't answer. Emma leaned forward. Richard? He finally said, Mercer. Emma's eyes narrowed. You're sure? I saw him. Why did he kill her? She wasn't Catherine. And Emma stared. Richard continued. Daniel wanted Catherine's location. So the dead woman was a decoy. Yes. Richard shook his head. I don't know. Emma stood. Then tell me what you do know. Richard looked at her. Daniel has the ledger. Emma froze. What? The original. How? Margaret gave it to him. When? Before she disappeared. Emma frowned. Then why is everyone looking for Catherine? Because Catherine knows the account. What account? Richard looked at her. The one holding the $214 million. Emma nodded. The Vale Family Trust. Richard shook his head. No. Emma waited. The money isn't in the trust anymore. Where is it? Richard leaned forward. In a personal account. Whose? He looked directly at her. Yours? Emma went completely still. Ben stared. What? Richard continued. Your identity was used to create the account. Emma felt a chill. My identity. Emma Hayes. She stared at him. That's impossible. Not if someone has been manufacturing identities for decades. Ben stepped closer. When was the account created? Richard looked at Emma. 3 months ago. Emma's face tightened. The exact time the investigation had begun. Someone had created an account in her name, using her identity, and placed the missing fortune inside it. Richard shook his head. No. Emma looked at Ben. He was already pulling out his phone. We need Kevin. Kevin confirmed it in under 20 minutes. There was an account. Emma Hayes, opened 3 months earlier, balance, Franz is 242,700,000. Emma stared at the screen. Can they move the money? Kevin shook his head. Not without your biometric authorization. Emma looked at him. My what? Fingerprint. Face. Possibly voice. Ben frowned. Then why create it in her name? Kevin looked at Emma. Because whoever created it wants you to become the legal owner. Emma's expression hardened. Why, Kevin opened another file. There's a beneficiary. Ooh. Kevin hesitated. Margaret Cole. Emma closed her eyes. The pattern finally made sense. The 5 dead retirees had changed their wills, all directing money toward Margaret's trust. The trust was connected to Catherine. The original fortune had been moved into an account under Emma's identity, and Margaret was the beneficiary. Someone was building a financial trail that would eventually lead directly to Emma. Ben looked at her. They're setting you up. Emma nodded. For what? Kevin answered quietly. Everything, and even 4:03 p.m., Emma received another message. A photograph. This time it showed Margaret. She was standing beside a car. Beside her was Catherine Vale alive, and behind them stood Rachel. All 3 women were together. The message beneath the photograph read as Combe Elon Drikivji location followed. The old Ravenwood courthouse. Ben read it. You're not going alone. Emma looked at him. I know. Good. She stared at the photograph. Margaret had something in her hand. A black notebook. The original ledger. Emma knew it immediately. That's what they want. Ben nodded. Then why show it to you? Emma looked at the message. Because they want me to bring them something. What? Emma's eyes narrowed. The account. The old courthouse had been abandoned for years. Emma and Ben entered through the rear door. The building smelled of damp wood and dust. Their footsteps echoed through the empty hallway. A light flickered upstairs. Emma moved toward it. Ben followed. You know, someday I'd like a case where the suspect meets us at a coffee shop. Emma looked at him. You'd complain about the coffee. Probably. They reached the courtroom. The doors were open. Inside stood Margaret, Rachel, and Catherine, all alive. Emma stopped. Catherine looked older than the photographs, but her eyes were sharp. Margaret held the black notebook. Rachel stood beside her. Emma lowered her weapon. Nobody move. Margaret nodded. We weren't planning to. Emma looked at Catherine. You're Catherine Vale, yes. You're supposed to be dead. Catherine smiled faintly. So is everyone else in this room? Ben muttered, fair point. Emma stepped closer. Why bring me here? Catherine looked at the notebook. Because you're the only person we can trust. And Emma frowned. You created an account in my name. And Catherine nodded. Yes. You put $214 million in it. Yes. Why? Catherine looked directly at her. Because Daniel is coming for it. Emma's expression hardened. Daniel Vale. Catherine nodded. He needs the money to disappear. Then why not give it to him? Because that money belongs to the people he stole it from. Emma looked at the ledger and the 5 retirees. They wanted it back. That's why they changed their wills. Catherine nodded. They knew Daniel was coming. Emma looked at Margaret. Then why did they die? Margaret answered. They tried to expose him, and he killed them. Catherine shook her head. No. Emma frowned. Then who? Catherine looked at her. The doctor? Mercer? Yes. Why? Because Daniel ordered him to? Emma felt the pieces align. The natural deaths. Catherine nodded. He made them look literal. All 5. And Elizabeth? Margaret looked down. Mercer killed her too. Emma's voice became quiet. What about Margaret? Catherine looked at her. Margaret survived. Emma stared. But you said. I was the one who died. Emma froze. Catherine continued. On June 18, 2007, Daniel tried to kill me. She pointed toward the ledger. Margaret switched identities with me. Emma understood. The body was Catherine. Yes. And Margaret disappeared. Yes. Then who have we been calling Margaret? Catherine looked toward the courtroom entrance. Daniel. Emma turned. A man stood in the doorway. Older, gray hair, calm expression, a faint scar beneath his right eye. The same scar from the photograph. He smiled. Hello, Detective Hayes. Emma raised her weapon. The man looked at her. My name is Daniel Vale. He smiled again. And I've been waiting 19 years to finish this? Daniel Vale stood in the doorway of the abandoned courtroom. He wasn't holding a weapon. That bothered Emma more than if he had been. People who walked into a room full of armed police officers without looking nervous usually had a reason. Ben slowly moved to Emma's side. Daniel Vale. Daniel smiled. That's right. Emma kept her weapon trained on him. Hands where I can see them. Daniel raised them. Of course. Catherine stepped backward. Margaret pulled Rachel closer. Emma noticed something. Daniel wasn't looking at them. He was looking at the black notebook in Margaret's hand. The ledger, he said. Margaret tightened her grip. You've wanted it for 19 years. Daniel smiled. I've wanted many things. Money. Yes. Identities. Sometimes. People. Daniel's smile disappears occasionally. Emma watched him. Did you kill the 5 retirees? Daniel looked at her. No. Emma frowned. Mercer did. At my instruction. That's murder? Daniel shrugged. Call it whatever helps you sleep. Ben stepped forward. How about murder? It's pretty accurate. Daniel glanced at him. You're the partner. Unfortunately for you. Daniel smiled faintly. I've read your files. Ben looked at Emma. That's creepy. Focus. I'm focused. Daniel looked amused. You two have been together a long time. Emma didn't answer. Daniel looked back at Margaret. The ledger. No, Margaret, Daniel sighed. I was hoping you wouldn't make this difficult. Catherine stepped forward. You've already killed enough. Daniel looked at her. Mother. Emma's eyes widened. Catherine's expression hardened. Don't call me that. Daniel smiled. You always hated being called mother when other people were around. Emma looked between them. You're his mother. Catherine nodded. Daniel is my son. Emma stared. The family history was becoming more complicated by the minute. Ben whispered, at this point I'm afraid to ask who's related to whom. Emma almost smiled. Then Daniel moved. Fast. He pulled a small handgun from inside his jacket. Emma fired. The shot struck the weapon from his hand. It clattered across the courtroom floor. Ben immediately moved toward him. Daniel raised his hands again. All right. Emma kept her weapon trained on him. Down. Daniel slowly dropped to his knees. Ben approached and cuffed him. That was easier than expected. Daniel looked up. Was it? Ben stopped. Daniel smiled. Then the lights went out. Everything happened at once. Rachel screamed. A door slammed. Someone moved in the darkness. Emma heard Margaret shout. Catherine. Emma raised her flashlight. A figure ran across the courtroom. Emma chased. The beam caught a dark coat disappearing through a side door. Ben followed. Emma. She pushed through the doorway. The corridor was empty. A window stood open. She ran to it. Nothing. Whoever had escaped was already gone. Ben reached her. Who was that? Emma looked back toward the courtroom. Not Daniel. Daniel was still on his knees. But Catherine was gone. So was the ledger. Emma stared at Margaret. What happened? Margaret looked toward the side door. Someone took Catherine. Ooh. I don't know. Rachel pointed toward Daniel. He wasn't alone. And Emma turned to him. Daniel smiled. You really should learn to lock your doors. Ben grabbed his shoulder. Don't. Daniel laughed. I'm just saying. Emma crouched in front of him. Where is Catherine? I don't know. You expect me to believe that? No. Then tell me the truth. Daniel looked at her. The woman who took her is the reason you've been unable to solve this. Emma frowned. Ooh. Daniel said nothing. Daniel? He leaned closer. You're looking for a murderer. And Emma stared at him. You should be looking for an organization. Back at the station, Daniel sat in an interrogation room. His lawyer had not arrived. Emma wasn't sure he would want one. People who had survived 19 years of murder, fraud and identity manipulation tended to have unusual confidence. Emma placed the photograph of the 5 dead retirees on the table. You knew they were going to die. Daniel nodded. Yes. You ordered Mercer to kill them. Yes. Why did they change their wills? Because they were frightened. Off what they had done. Emma leaned forward. They knew about the ledger. Wes? They knew Catherine had survived. Wes? They knew Margaret was alive. Wes? Then why didn't they go to the police? Daniel smiled. Because they were goody. Emma stared at him. You killed guilty people. No. He leaned back. I removed liabilities. Ben, standing behind Emma, shook his head. That's a remarkably polished way of saying murder. Daniel glanced at him. Would you prefer murderer? Yes? Daniel smiled. Fine. Emma placed another photograph on the table. Susan Harlan. Did Mercer kill her? Yes. Why? She found the old medical records. She was investigating. Daniel's expression changed. Her husband was. And Emma looked at him. Captain Harlan. Remembered too much. Emma's eyes narrowed. So you killed his wife? I didn't. Mercer did. At my instruction. Emma leaned closer. Same thing? Daniel shrugged. Perhaps. Emma pushed the photograph toward him. What about Elizabeth Cole? Daniel looked at it. She shouldn't have survived. Did you order her death? No. Then who did? Daniel remained silent. Emma waited. Finally he said, Margaret. Emma frowned. Margaret killed Elizabeth. Daniel looked at her. Margaret tried to protect her, and Emma stared. Then who killed Elizabeth? Daniel smiled. You're asking the wrong question again. Emma's patience was thinning. What question should I ask? Who benefits? Emma leaned back. That's what you always ask. Because it works? Not this time. Daniel's expression changed. Then ask yourself why 5 wealthy people would suddenly leave millions to a woman who was legally dead. Emma said nothing. Daniel continued. They weren't leaving money to Margaret. They were restoring an identity. Exactly? Woos. Daniel smiled. Mine. Emma frowned. You. The name Daniel Vale had become inconvenient. So you wanted to become Harold Whitmore again. Nuke. Emma waited. Daniel leaned forward. I wanted to become someone else. Emma felt a chill. Ooh, Daniel smiled. That's what the ledger tells you. Pat. Kevin entered the observation room. He looked at Emma through the glass. There's a problem, and Emma stepped outside. What? We found the account? The one in my name?
Yes.
Duh, still active. Kevin nodded, but someone tried to exits ago, 20 minutes ago. Emma's eyes narrowed. From where? Kevin handed her the location. She stared. The abandoned courthouse. The account requires biometric verification.
Yes.
Yours. Emma looked at Ben. Then someone has my biometric data. Kevin nodded. Or he. He hesitated. What? They have a way to fake it. Emma thought about the identity files, the medical records, the forged passports, the false deaths. The system had existed for decades. Someone had built an entire industry around becoming another person. Kevin continued. The access attempt failed. Why? Because the face didn't match. Emma frowned. Whose face? Kevin looked at her. Yours. Emma went still. Someone had tried to access an account using her identity, but the system had rejected them, which meant they were close. Very close. Evelyn Shaw was waiting in the forensic lab. Emma showed her the photographs from the courtroom. Can you identify this man? Evelyn studied Daniel's face. Daniel Vale? You know him? Numpo. Then how did you recognize him? Evelyn pointed at his scar. I've seen photographs from the 1991 case. Emma frowned. What about him? The man, identified as Michael Vale, had the same scar. Emma stared. That's impossible. Evelyn nodded. Unless the two brothers really were identical. Emma remembered Rachel's photograph. Two men, same face, one scar, one identity. Then she remembered something else. Can you compare Daniel's fingerprints with the old records? Evelyn nodded. Yes, do it. She paused. Emma. What? You may not like the result. 2 hours later, Evelyn called. Emma and Ben returned to the lab. Evelyn placed 2 fingerprint cards on the table. These are from the 1901 accident. She placed another beside them. These are Daniel Vale's fingerprints. Emma looked at them. Same pattern, same ridge structure, same person. Daniel Vale had survived the 1991 accident. The man officially declared dead was someone else. Emma looked at Ben. So Daniel became Michael, then became Harold, and now he wants another identity. Evelyn nodded. Emma stared at the fingerprints. Whose? Evelyn hesitated. We found something else. She handed Emma another report. A fingerprint comparison. Emma read the name. Her own. She looked up. What? Someone has already attempted to create a biometric profile using your fingerprints. When? 3 months ago. Emma felt cold. That's when the investigation had begun. Someone had been preparing her identity long before she knew there was a case. Who submitted the request? Evelyn looked at her. Ravenwood General. Emma's stomach tightened. Paul Mercer. Evelyn nodded. His credentials were used. But Mercer was supposedly dead. Exactly. Emma stared at the report. The dead doctor. The dead lawyer's records. The dead financial club. The dead Harold Whitmore. All of it was beginning to look like one enormous machine. And someone had selected Emma as its next identity. That night, Emma returned to the interrogation room. Daniel was sitting quietly. She placed the biometric report in front of him. He looked at it, then smiled. You found it? What is it? My exit. Emma stared. You're planning to become me. Daniel shook his head. Not me? And who? Daniel leaned forward. The person who's been helping me. Emma's expression changed. Who? Daniel looked at the one-way glass. You already know her. Emma turned. No one stood outside. She looked back at Daniel. Name. He smiled. Dr. Evelyn Shaw. Emma froze. Daniel continued. She's been altering death records for years. Emma stared at him. You're lying. Ask her. Emma didn't move. Daniel smiled. That's the problem with detectives. What? You trust the evidence. He leaned back. I manufacture it. The door opened. Evelyn entered. She looked at Emma. Her expression was unreadable. Daniel smiled. Hello, Evelyn. Emma slowly turned toward her. Evelyn looked at Daniel. Then at Emma. Detective. Emma's hand moved toward her weapon. Don't move. Evelyn stopped. Daniel smiled wider. And then Evelyn said something that made Emma's blood run cold. Emma. She looked directly at her. Daniel is telling you the truth. Emma's hand remained near her weapon. Evelyn stood perfectly still. Daniel watched both women with an almost amused expression. Emma looked at Evelyn. Explain. Evelyn slowly raised both hands. I've altered medical records. Ben stepped into the room. That's not the explanation I was hoping for. Evelyn glanced at him. Neither was I. Daniel smiled. Emma didn't. You've been helping Daniel? No. Daniel laughed softly. Technically, she has. Evelyn looked at him. Don't. Daniel shrugged. Emma's eyes stayed on Evelyn. What did you alter? Records from 2007. Which ones? Death certificates, autopsy reports. Hospital admission records. Emma's jaw tightened. Margaret. Less. Susan Harlan. Elizabeth. New. Then what? Evelyn took a breath. I altered the records because I was trying to expose the system. And Emma stared at her. You expect me to believe that? New. Good, good. Evelyn lowered her hands. I didn't expect you to. Daniel leaned back. This is the part where she explains everything and you realize nobody is who they claim to be. Ben looked at him. You're really enjoying this, so Daniel smiled. Immensely. Ben nodded. Good. Prison should be interesting. Daniel's smile faded. Emma turned back to Evelyn. Start with 2007. Evelyn nodded. I was a medical resident at Ravenwood General. Emma knew that already. Paul Mercer was my supervisor. The same Mercer who signed Margaret's death certificate. Wes, what did he tell you? That some patients weren't supposed to exist. Emma frowned. Meaning, people arrived under false names. Records were created, then removed. Why? Identity transfers. Emma remembered the hidden clinic. Mercer was part of the exchange. Yes. Did he kill people? Evelyn hesitated. Yes. How? Drugs, injections, overdoses made to look like natural medical events. Emma's expression hardened. How many? I don't know. Estimate? At least 20? Ben looked at Daniel. You weren't exaggerating. Daniel shook his head. Emma ignored him. Why did you join him? I didn't. Then why stay? Evelyn looked down. Because I was afraid. Emma softened slightly. What happened? Mercer discovered that I had copied the records. What did he do? He threatened my family. Did he threaten you with death? Worse. Evelyn looked directly at Emma. He threatened to erase them. Emma understood. Identity destruction. Wes, make them legally disappear. Evelyn nodded. Birth certificates, medical records, financial accounts, everything. Ben's expression hardened. That would make someone almost impossible. Fine. Exactly. Emma looked at Daniel. Where do you fit? Daniel smiled. I was the architect. Off the identity system. Part of it. Mercer worked for you. Yes. You ordered the deaths. Some? Emma stared. Some? Daniel nodded. Others were ordered by people who are now dead. The 5 retirees. Among others. Emma looked at Evelyn. Then why help us? Evelyn answered before Daniel could. Because I decided I had enough. Emma waited. When? 3 years ago. What changed? Mercer died. Emma frowned. Was he really dead? Evelyn nodded. I saw the body. Autopsy. I performed it. Emma studied her. And yet he appeared on security footage yesterday. Evelyn looked at Daniel. That wasn't Paul. Emma stopped. What? That man wasn't Paul Mercer. Daniel smiled. Now we're getting somewhere. Evelyn continued. Paul Mercer died 2 years ago. Then who was at the nursing facility? Someone using his identity. Emma looked at Daniel. One of your people. Daniel shook his head. Not mine. Emma frowned. Then whose? Daniel's expression changed. That's the question I've been trying to answer. For the first time, he looked genuinely concerned. Emma noticed. You're afraid of someone. Daniel didn't respond. Emma stepped closer. Who? Daniel looked at her. Someone who learned the system better than I did. Kevin called from the corridor. Emma. She stepped outside. Kevin hurried toward her. We found the nursing facility footage. Who was with Richard Bell? Kevin handed her a tablet. The second man wasn't Paul Mercer. Who? Kevin paused the image. Emma stared. The man's face was partially visible. Older. Thin. Gray hair. She recognized him. Captain Harlan? Ben looked at the screen. That's impossible. Kevin nodded. He's 91? Emma stared. The footage had been recorded the night before. Captain Harlan had been at his home. Or so everyone believed. Where is Harlan now? Kevin checked. At home? Emma immediately called the patrol unit assigned to him. No answer. She called again. Still nothing. Ben looked at her. That's not good. Emma grabbed her jacket. Let's go. Captain Harlan's house was dark. The patrol car remained outside. Emma approached the front door. It was unlocked. She entered. Captain Harlan. Nothing. Ben followed. The living room was empty. The television was on. A cup of tea sat on the table, still warm. Emma looked toward the hallway. A door stood open. Inside was Harlan's study. His desk had been emptied. Files were gone. The old photograph of the Ravenwood exchange was missing. Emma opened a drawer. Nothing. Then Ben found something on the floor. An envelope. He handed it to her. Emma opened it. Inside was a photograph of Margaret Cole. On the back Emma frowned. Who? A sound came from upstairs. Emma and Ben drew their weapons. They moved carefully. The second floor was empty. Then Emma noticed the bathroom door. It was locked. She opened it. Harlan was inside. Alive, barely conscious. Emma knelt. Captain, his eyes open. Hayes! Who did this? Harlan struggled to speak. Not Daniel. Harlan grabbed her sleeve. The doctor. Emma's expression hardened. Mercer. Harlan shook his head. Another one? Another doctor. Harlan nodded. Young, he coughed. Female. Emma froze. Who? Harlan tried to speak. Nothing came out. His eyes closed. Emma checked his pulse alive. Ben called in an ambulance. Emma stood. A female doctor. Ben looked at her. Any idea who? Emma didn't answer. She was thinking about someone. Someone who had been inside every investigation. Someone who understood medicine. Someone who had access to evidence. Someone who knew how the old system worked. Someone who had admitted altering records. Evelyn. But Evelyn had been with them. Or had she? Emma's phone rang. Evelyn. Emma answered. Where are you? At the station. Stay there. A pause. Why? Because Captain Harlan was attacked. Silence. Then Evelyn said, by whom? Emma looked at Ben. That's what I'm trying to find out. Evelyn's voice became tense. Emma, you need to leave the house. Why? Because you're standing in the wrong place. Emma frowned. What does that mean? The killer wanted you to find Harlan. Emma's eyes narrowed. Why? So you'd believe he's still a witness. Emma looked at the envelope. The photograph. Yes. What's the real message? Evelyn hesitated. Then said, the ledger isn't with Margaret. Emma went still. Where is it? With me? The call ended. Emma stared at the phone. Ben looked at her. She has the ledger. Emma nodded. Apparently. Then why tell us? Emma's phone buzzed again. A message from Evelyn. One photograph. Evelyn standing inside a hospital basement. Behind her was a metal cabinet, and beside it stood Catherine Vale, alive. Under the photograph was a message that I said I can't expaivri Ben read it. No, Emma looked at him. No going alone. She specifically said alone. That's why we're not doing it. Emma almost smiled. Ben nodded. I'm learning. Evelyn's location was Ravenwood General Hospital, the same hospital where Mercer had worked, the same hospital where Margaret's death had been falsified. Emma and Ben entered through the emergency entrance. The building was quiet, too quiet. Emma checked her weapon. Ben looked at her. If this turns into another secret basement. Emma looked at him. It will. I was afraid you'd say that. They found the basement elevator. It required a keycard. Emma used hers. The doors opened. They descended. When the doors opened again, the corridor was dark. A single light was visible at the far end. Evelyn stood beneath it. She held the black ledger. Emma stopped. Catherine. Evelyn pointed toward the room behind her. She's inside. Emma looked at Ben. He moved toward the door. Evelyn spoke quickly. Why? Ben stopped. Why? Because she's not alone. Emma's expression changed. Who is with her? Evelyn looked directly at Emma. Daniel. Emma turned toward the room. You said Daniel was arrested. He escaped. How? Evelyn's expression became grim. Because the man you arrested wasn't Daniel. Emma froze. What? Evelyn opened the door. Inside, a man sat beside Catherine. Emma recognized him. Same face, same scar, same eyes. Daniel Vale. But then Emma heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Another man stepped out of the shadows. Same face, no scar. Emma's blood ran cold. Two identical men both looking at her. One smiled. The other didn't. Evelyn whispered, now you understand. Emma stared at the brothers. We've been following the wrong man. One of them spoke. No, detective. The other finished. You've been following us, both of us? Emma kept her weapon raised. Two identical men stood in the hospital basement. One had a faint scar beneath his right eye. The other didn't. Catherine sat behind them, pale but conscious. Evelyn stood beside the ledger. Ben slowly moved closer to Emma. Can someone please explain which one we're supposed to arrest? The man without the scar smiled. Neither. Ben sighed. Of course. Emma didn't take her eyes off them. Names. The man with the scar spoke first. Daniel Vale. The other man said Michael Vale. Emma looked from one to the other. You've been switching identities. Michael nodded. Since 1991. Why? Daniel answered. Because one of us was supposed to die. Emma looked at Catherine. Who? Catherine closed her. Daniel. Daniel's expression hardened. Mother. She opened her eyes. You know it's true. Emma stepped forward. Start talking. Michael glanced at Daniel. Then at Catherine. 25 years ago, Daniel discovered the identity business. Emma frowned. Identity business. People paid us to disappear. Michael continued. We created new identities, new records, new accounts, new histories, and the Ravenwood Exchange. Our financial operation. Money laundering. At first. Emma narrowed her eyes. What changed? Daniel answered. People realized identities were worth more than money. Emma waited. A wealthy client could disappear. Michael continued. A criminal could become someone else. Daniel said. A dead person could become someone who is still alive. Emma felt cold. That's what happened to Harold Whitmore. Michael nodded. Daniel killed the real Harold. Daniel looked at him. He was already dying. You still killed him. Daniel didn't answer. Emma turned to Michael. Then you became Harold? Michael shook his head. No. Daniel spoke. I did. Emma looked at him. Then who became Michael? Michael smiled. I did? Your Emma frowned. Your brothers. Identical twins. Ben muttered. That would have been useful information about 3 chapters ago. Emma gave him a brief look. Michael continued. We switched identities whenever it benefited us. Then which one of you died in 1991? Michael looked at Daniel. Neither. Emma stared. Daniel smiled faintly. A client. Emma's expression hardened. You staged another death? Yes. Woos. An unidentified man. Emma shook her head. So Paul Mercer certified the death. Daniel nodded. And the first identity transfer was complete. Emma looked at Catherine. You knew? I discovered it later. When? 1992. Emma remembered the ledger. The 17 accounts. 4 shell companies. $31 million. Catherine discovered the original theft. Yes. And you tried to kill her. Daniel looked down. I did. Michael interrupted. He did more than that. Emma turned. What? Michael's face became serious. Daniel wanted Catherine dead. But you didn't. Oh. Michael looked at his mother. I helped her disappear. Emma frowned. So you're the one who saved Catherine. Wes, why? Michael hesitated. Because she was my mother too. Daniel looked at him. That's not why. Michael's expression hardened. Don't. Emma noticed the tension between the brothers. They weren't working together anymore. That could be useful. Where is the ledger? Evelyn held it up. Here. Emma looked at her. You've had it. Wes, didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know whom to trust. Emma looked at Daniel. Fair. Daniel laughed. That's the first intelligent thing anyone has said tonight. Ben glanced at him. Don't get comfortable. Daniel smiled. I wasn't planning to. Emma looked at Evelyn. What does the ledger contain? Everything. Names. Yes. Payments. Yes. Identity transfers. Yes. Murder instructions. Evelyn nodded. Some. Emma's attention shifted to Daniel. And the 5 retirees. Daniel's expression changed. They were listed. By whom? Mercer? And Emma frowned. Then Mercer kept his own records. Kept everything? Why? Daniel answered. Because he didn't trust anyone. Ben looked around the basement. Finally, a sensible person. Emma ignored him. Where are Mercer's records? Evelyn looked at the cabinet. Inside, as she opened it, hundreds of medical files filled the shelves. Emma stepped closer. She began scanning names. Harold Whitmore, Thomas Avery, Linda Crawford, George Mason, Arthur Klein, Susan Harlan, Elizabeth Cole. Then another name, Margaret Cole. Emma pulled the file. Inside was a medical photograph. She stared. The woman in the photograph was Margaret, alive, healthy. But the date was 2007, June 18. Emma Trench's medical note had been written beneath it. Patient received compound at 10:58 p.m. Emma looked up. Compound. Evelyn took the file. Her face changed. What? This isn't a sedative. What is it? Evelyn read the note again. It's a cardiac suppressant. Emma's stomach tightened. What? New? Then what? It would make her appear dead. Ben stepped closer. Appear. Evelyn nodded. It could slow the heart dramatically. How long? Several hours. Emma looked at the photograph. So Margaret wasn't killed? No. She was temporarily made to appear dead. Evelyn nodded. Emma felt a chill. Then the body on the roof. Michael interrupted. Wasn't Margaret. Emma looked at him. Whose body? The Michael didn't answer. Daniel did. Catherine. Catherine closed her eyes. Emma stared at her. You used your own mother. Daniel looked at Emma. It was the only way to protect Margaret. Emma turned toward Catherine. Did you agree to this? Catherine nodded. I did. Why? Because Margaret had discovered the ledger. Emma looked at Daniel. So Margaret survived. Yes. And Catherine was the body. Yes. Then who was the woman with the syringe? Michael answered. Mercer's assistant. Name, Sarah Vale. Emma stopped. Vale. Michael nodded. Our sister. Emma stared. Another sibling. Michael gave a tired smile. You're beginning to understand why family dinners were complicated. Ben muttered. I don't even want to imagine Thanksgiving. For the first time, Catherine laughed. It was brief, but genuine. Then her expression became serious. Sarah was the one who administered the compound. Emma looked at the file. What happened to her? Daniel's expression darkened. She disappeared. Why? Because she knew too much. Emma understood. Was she killed? We don't know. Emma turned back to the ledger. Then the 5 recent deaths. Mercer. Ordered by Daniel? Yes. Why now? Daniel looked at the floor. Because someone was threatening to expose the original operation. Emma frowned. Who? Daniel didn't answer. Michael did. Sarah. Emma looked at him. She's alive. Probably. We're. Michael looked at the ledger. That's why everyone wants this. Emma understood. The ledger didn't just contain financial records. It contained Sarah's location. And if Sarah was alive, she could identify everyone involved. Emma looked at Daniel. You weren't killing the 5 retirees because of the money. No. You were killing them because they could lead investigators to Sarah. Daniel nodded. And the wills. They were trying to protect the money. From you? Yes. Emma looked at Michael. And you? Michael shook his head. I wanted the operation exposed. Emma frowned. Why? Michael looked at Catherine. Because I finally realized what we'd become. Daniel laughed. You became sentimental? No. Michael looked tired. I became tired. Daniel's smile disappeared. Emma sensed the tension. Where is Sarah now? Neither brother answered. Catherine did. Ravenwood. Emma looked at her. Where? At the place where it started. The exchange. Catherine shook her head. The cemetery. Emma frowned. Why would she be there? Because that's where Daniel buried the truth. They left the hospital basement with the ledger secured as evidence. Daniel and Michael were separated and placed under arrest. Catherine went with Olivia Brooks. Evelyn remained at the station under protective custody. Emma and Ben drove toward Ravenwood Cemetery. The city was quiet. Ben glanced at Emma. Do you realize how much easier this case would have been if people had just told the truth? Emma looked ahead. Nobody in this case knows how. Fair. They reached the cemetery. The gates were open. Emma stepped out. The moonlight barely reached between the trees. Ben followed. Where exactly are we going? And Emma checked Catherine's instructions. Section 17. They walked between rows of graves. Then Emma stopped. A small stone marker stood beneath an oak tree. Nonelia number 17. Ben looked at her. That number again. Emma nodded. She crouched. The soil beneath the marker looked disturbed. Someone dug here. Ben pulled out his flashlight. Together they uncovered a metal box. Emma opened it. Inside was a cassette tape, a photograph, and a handwritten note. She unfolded the note. If yo you fuentishi Sarah Hayes Ale deed. Emma's stomach tightened. Ben looked at the photograph. It showed 4 people standing outside the Ravenwood Exchange. Daniel, Michael, Catherine, and Sarah. On the back was a date, June 18, 2007. Emma turned the photograph over again. There was another line. Seek my AS and TTO and WD. Emma stared. Ben looked at her. Then who was? Before Emma could answer, her phone rang. Olivia? Hayes. Where are you at the cemetery? Leave. Emma frowned. Why? We found something in the ledger. What? Olivia's voice became tense. Sarah Vale isn't listed as missing? Emma froze. Then, what? She's listed as a deceased victim. Emma looked at the photograph. Sarah was standing there in 2007. Alive, Olivia continued. The death certificate says she died in 2014. Natural causes, Ben whispered. Of course. Emma closed her eyes. Who signed it? A pause. Olivia answered. Evelyn Shaw. Emma went completely still. The phone slipped slightly in her hand. Evelyn had admitted altering records. But if the death certificate was legitimate, then Evelyn had signed of a woman who may never have died. Emma looked at Ben. Get back to the station. Why? Because Evelyn may not be our witness. Ben stared. What is she? Emma looked at the cassette tape in her hand. I don't know yet. She turned toward the cemetery gate. A figure stood there. A woman. Watching them, Emma raised her flashlight. The woman stepped into the light. Gray hair. Thin face. A small scar beneath her left ear. Emma froze. It was Margaret. But Margaret wasn't alone. Standing beside her was another woman, Sarah Vale, alive. Sarah looked directly at Emma. Then she said, Detective Hayes, if Evelyn told you she killed me. She paused. She was lying. Emma kept her flashlight trained on the 2 women. Margaret stood calmly beside Sarah Vale. Sarah looked frightened, not terrified, wary, like someone who had spent years expecting the worst. Ben moved beside Emma. Sarah nodded. Yes. And Emma looked at Margaret. You knew where she was. Wes. And you didn't tell us? I couldn't. Why? Margaret glanced at Sarah. Because she didn't trust you? Sarah spoke quietly. I didn't trust anyone. Ben looked around the cemetery. That's becoming the official policy of Ravenwood. Emma ignored him. She stepped towards Sarah. Your death certificate says you died in 2014. Sarah gave a bitter smile. I know. Signed by Dr. Evelyn Shaw. Sarah nodded. That's why you shouldn't trust her. Emma's expression hardened. Tell me what happened. Sarah looked toward the cemetery. My death was arranged. By whom? Daniel. Emma frowned. Why? Because I knew what he had done. What did you know? The Sarah took a breath. The 5 men weren't his first victims. Emma already knew that. How many? 23. Daniel told us that. Sarah shook her head. Daniel doesn't know all of them. Emma stopped. Then who does? Sarah looked at Margaret. She does. Margaret shook her head. No, Sarah turned toward her. You were there. I was there for some, not all. Emma stepped between them. Enough. Both women fell silent. You're going to tell me everything? Sarah looked at Emma. Everything? Start with 2014. Sarah nodded. Daniel wanted me dead. Why? I had copied the medical records. Mercer's records. Yes. Why? Because Mercer had started keeping a second ledger. Emma frowned. A medical ledger. Names, dates, drugs, amounts. She looked at Emma. And which person had been substituted for which? And Emma understood. The identity transfers. Sarah nodded. I found proof that the exchange had been using dead people to create new identities. How many? At least 50. Ben looked at Emma. 50? Sarah nodded. Some were criminals. Some. Others were innocent. Emma's expression tightened. Why would innocent people be involved? They weren't. Sarah looked down. They were victims. Sarah explained that the exchange had discovered something more profitable than laundering money. They could sell a person's identity. If someone died without close relatives, their identity became valuable. A new client could take over the records. Bank accounts, property, medical history, tax records, even professional credentials. The dead person disappeared. The new person effectively became them. And the system had one crucial requirement. Someone inside the medical system had to certify the death. Emma looked at Sarah, Mercer, Wes, and Evelyn. Sarah hesitated. Eventually, Emma noticed the hesitation. What does that mean? Evelyn wasn't part of it in the beginning. She became involved later because Mercer forced her. Emma nodded. That's what she told us. Sarah looked at her. Most of it is true. Most. Sarah's eyes lowered. She changed more records than Mercer ordered. Emma went still. Wow, no, Margaret spoke. Because she was building her own. List? Emma turned. Her own list? Margaret nodded. People she believed were beyond saving. Ben frowned. She was choosing who deserved to die. Margaret didn't answer. Emma felt a chill. How many? Sarah said quietly. 7. They returned to the station before sunrise. Evelyn was still in protective custody. Olivia met Emma in the corridor. You found Sarah? Less. Olivia stared. Olive. Very. Olivia looked toward the interrogation room. Evelyn knows. Not yet. Emma entered. Evelyn looked up. Her face changed when she saw Sarah. For the first time, Emma saw genuine fear in her eyes. Sarah. Sarah stopped. You told them I was dead. Evelyn didn't answer. Sarah stepped closer. You signed my death certificate. I had to. Knew. Sarah's voice became stronger. You wanted me gone. Evelyn looked at Emma. That's not what happened then. Explain. Evelyn looked exhausted. I was trying to protect you. Sarah laughed bitterly. You erased me. Because Daniel was looking for you. And you helped him. No. Sarah stepped closer. You gave him my location. Evelyn shook her head. Only once. Emma immediately intervened. When? Evelyn looked at her. 3 months ago. Emma remembered. The account created in her name. The identity transfer. The investigation. Everything had started 3 months ago. What did Daniel ask you to do? Create a new identity. Whose? Evelyn hesitated. Yours. Emma's eyes narrowed. Why? Because Daniel needed someone trustworthy. Emma stared. You were going to replace me. Evelyn shook her head. No. Then what? Daniel wanted to use your identity to access the money. Emma remembered the account. $214 million. He couldn't access it. Not without you. Evelyn looked down. That was the problem. Emma stepped closer. Who created the account? Michael. Emma frowned. Not Daniel. No. Sarah interrupted. Michael was trying to steal the money from Daniel. Emma looked at her. Why? Because he wanted to destroy the operation. Be taking the money. Be freezing it. Sarah continued. Michael believed the only way to stop Daniel was to remove the money. So he created the account under my identity. Yes. Emma looked at Evelyn. And you helped him. Evelyn nodded. I thought it was the safest option. Ben, standing behind Emma, muttered, Your definition of safe needs work. Evelyn looked at him. I know. Emma went into the conference room with Olivia, Ben, Kevin, and Dr. Shaw. The ledger sat on the table. Kevin had digitized several pages. We found the 5 recent deaths. Emma looked at the screen. All 5 had changed their wills. Yes. All 5 had connections to the exchange. Yes. And all 5 had medical records altered before death. Kevin nodded. But there's something else. He opened another file. Their wills were changed by the same attorney. Emma looked at the name. Richard Bell. Bell. Kevin nodded. He prepared all 5. Emma frowned. Then Richard wasn't just the estate attorney in Anupu. He was part of the operation. Olivia folded her arms. How deep? Kevin opened another document. His name appears on the original ledger? Emma stared. Richard Bell. Beside his name was a payment, $4.2 million. Then another entry, identity management, 1998-2007. Emma felt her stomach tighten. Richard handled identity transfers. Looks like it. Ben shook his head. So the man whose Margaret's address was part of the system. Emma nodded. He wanted us to find her. Why? Because he wanted us distracted. Olivia looked at her. From what? Emma pointed at the ledger. Michael? Richard Bell's office was empty. The police had searched it once. Now Emma searched it again. This time she knew what she was looking for. She opened the safe. Nothing. Then she noticed a false bottom. Inside was a passport. Richard Bell. Except the photograph wasn't Richard. Emma stared. The name was correct. The face wasn't. Another identity. Another transfer. Another dead person. Ben looked over her shoulder. How many people in Ravenwood are actually who they say they are? Emma closed the passport. Probably fewer than we'd like. A noise came from the hallway. Emma drew her weapon. Ben did the same. A man stepped into the doorway. Richard Bell. His hands were raised. Don't shoot. Emma aimed at him. Where have you been? Hiding? From whom? Daniel. Emma narrowed her eyes. You worked for him. I did die? How long? 20 years. Why? Richard looked exhausted. Because I was trapped. Emma didn't lower her weapon. Everyone says that. Richard reached into his jacket. Ben immediately raised his gun. Richard slowly removed a small envelope. I found this in Daniel's office. Emma took it. What is it? A list. She opened it. 23 names. Beside each name was a date. Some dates were crossed out. Others weren't. Emma recognized the first 5. The retirees, then Elizabeth, then Susan Harlan, then several others. At the bottom were 3 names. Catherine Vale, Sarah Vale, Emma Hayes. Emma stared. Her name had been added recently. Richard looked at her. You're next. Emma folded the paper. Who wrote this? Richard swallowed. Michael. Emma frowned. Why would Michael want me dead? Because you're the last person who can expose both brothers. How? Richard looked at the ledger. The money? Emma waited. The $214 million isn't the only thing in that account. What else? Ownership. Emma's expression changed. Ownership of what? Richard said. The Ravenwood Exchange. Emma stared. The entire operation. Richard nodded. Buildings. Companies. Accounts. Properties? All of it? Everything? Trevi looked at the ledger. And the person who controls the money controls the exchange. Richard nodded. Exactly. Emma understood. The murders weren't about inheritance. They were about control. The wills had been altered to redirect ownership. The retirees were dying because someone wanted their shares transferred. And Emma's identity had been used because she was being positioned as the final legal owner. But why? Richard looked at her. Because Michael wants to destroy it. Emma frowned. And Daniel wants to own it. She looked at Ben. So the brothers aren't working together. No. They're fighting over the same empire. Richard nodded. One wants to inherit it. The other wants to erase it. Emma looked at the list again. Her name remained at the bottom, not crossed out. Yet, that evening, Emma sat alone in the evidence room. She spread the photographs across the table. Margaret, Elizabeth, Rachel, Catherine, Sarah, Daniel, Michael, Mercer. Then she placed the old photograph of the Ravenwood Exchange in the center. 6 people stood outside the building. 5 were identified. 1 wasn't. Emma enlarged the 6th person. A woman, late 30s, dark hair. She was standing behind Mercer. Emma called Kevin. An aunt's this? Already doing it. The image sharpened. Emma stared. The woman's face became clearer. She recognized her. Her breath caught. It was the woman from the portrait in Harold Whitmore's study. The woman everyone had assumed was Margaret. But it wasn't Margaret. It was someone else. Kevin spoke. Emma, I found a match. Ooh. Kevin was silent for a moment. Then, she's listed as deceased. Emma looked at the photograph. When? 2018. Cows. Natural causes. Emma closed her eyes. Who signed it? Kevin answered. Dr. Evelyn Shaw. Emma stared at the photograph again. The woman had a name. Laura Whitmore, Harold's supposed wife. The woman who had supposedly died years before Harold. Emma suddenly understood. There had been another identity inside the exchange. Another person who had vanished. And another death certificate signed by Evelyn. Her phone rang. Sarah. Detective. Emma answered. Yes. Sarah's voice was barely audible. You need to come to the hospital. Why? I found something in Mercer's old files. What? A photograph. Of whom? Sarah hesitated. Laura Whitmore. Emma sat upright. What about her? Sarah whispered she wasn't Harold's wife. A pause. She was his daughter. Emma froze. Then Sarah said, and she's alive. Emma found Sarah in the hospital records room. She was standing beside a metal filing cabinet, holding an old photograph. Ben came in behind Emma. Please tell me this is the last secret room in Ravenwood. Sarah looked at him. It isn't. Ben closed his eyes. I knew you were going to say that. Emma held out her hand, the photograph. Sarah gave it to her. It showed a young woman in her late 20s. Dark hair, sharp eyes, a small scar beneath her left ear. Emma stared. Laura Whitmore. Sarah nodded. That's what the records say. She's Harold's daughter. That's what I was told. Emma looked at the photograph again. Why was she listed as his wife? Sarah shook her head. She wasn't. Emma frowned. Then why did everyone think she was? Because the identity called Laura Whitmore belonged to another woman. Emma looked at Ben. Another replacement. Sarah nodded. The real Laura Whitmore disappeared in 2007. When? June 18. Emma felt a chill. The same night Margaret died. Sarah nodded. That night wasn't one murder? Emma looked at her. It was an identity transfer. Sarah placed another document on the table. Laura was supposed to inherit the exchange. Emma read the document. Beneficiary Laura Whitmore. Then controlling interest 51%. Emma looked up. She owned half the operation. Won paper, won the other 49%. Divided between the 5 retirees. Emma stared. Everything clicked. The wills, the deaths, the inheritance, the account, the murders. That's why they changed their wills. Sarah nodded. They were transferring their ownership to Laura, but Laura was dead. Officially. Emma looked at the photograph. Who was using her identity? Sarah hesitated. The woman you saw in Harold's portrait. Emma's expression changed. Who was she? Her name was Vivian Cross. Ben frowned. Another name. Sarah gave him a tired look. Yes, he sighed. We should stop being surprised. Emma examined the photograph. So Vivian became Laura?
Yes. Why?
Because the real Laura disappeared. Emma looked at Sarah. Where did she go? Sarah's expression became grim. She was taken.
Bay Daniel.
Knew. Then who? Sarah looked at Emma, her father. Emma froze. Harold? Sarah nodded. Harold Whitmore kidnapped his own daughter. The story sounded impossible, but Ravenwood had stopped respecting the word. Sarah explained that Laura had discovered her father's identity scheme. She had found the original records. She knew that the man calling himself Harold Whitmore wasn't Harold. She also knew that Daniel and Michael had been switching identities. Laura threatened to expose them. Instead of killing her, Harold hid her? Where? Emma asked. Sarah shook her head. We don't
know, because she's alive. How?
Because she escaped. When 2018. Emma looked at the death certificate. Laura Whitmore. Natural causes. Emma's eyes narrowed. The woman who supposedly died in 2018 wasn't Laura. It was another replacement. Sarah nodded. Exactly. Emma looked at the signature. Evelyn Shog again. So Evelyn helped Laura disappear. Yes. Then why did she tell us she had no idea? Because she was protecting Laura. Emma frowned. From Daniel. From everyone. Ben leaned against the cabinet. So Evelyn isn't the mastermind. Sarah looked at him. No. She's the cleanup crew. Sarah nodded. That's one way to describe it. Ben sighed. Finally, a job description. Emma almost smiled. Then Sarah added. But Evelyn made one mistake. What? She trusted Richard Bell. Emma's expression changed. Richard. Sarah nodded. Richard knew Laura was alive. And he sold the information. To whom? Sarah looked at Emma. Daniel. Emma called Olivia. Brooks. I need Richard Bell located immediately. We already have units looking. Why? Because he disappeared. Emma stopped. When? 20 minutes ago. Emma looked at Ben. We're. His office. And Emma closed her eyes. He's running. Olivia's voice became serious. Hayes, there's something else. What? We searched his office. And? We found a room behind the wall. Emma sighed. Of course. Inside the hidden room, investigators found passports, bank records, medical files, and photographs. But one item stood out. A security photograph. Richard Bell standing beside Daniel Vale. The date was 3 months earlier. But Daniel was supposed to have been somewhere else. Emma looked at the image. He wasn't hiding. Olivia nodded. He was working with Richard. Yes. Emma looked closer. Daniel was handing Richard a folder. On the folder was a name. Yemen Halas. Her stomach tightened. That's when they created the account. Probably. Emma looked at Ben. So Richard helped create my identity profile. Ben nodded. And then he brought you into the investigation. Emma stared at him. Why? To make you believe the evidence. Emma's expression hardened. Evidence pointing at Daniel. Exactly. Which means. Emma looked toward Sarah. This entire investigation may have been manipulated. Sarah nodded. Yes. Kevin called 10 minutes later. Emma. What? I found the source of the original case file. Emma straightened. The 2007 investigation. Yes, it wasn't created by Ravenwood Police. Emma frowned. Who created it? Private investigators. Who hired them? Kevin hesitated. Harold Whitmore. Emma stared. Harold investigated his own crime. Looks like it. Why? Kevin opened another file. Because he wanted to know who was stealing from him. Emma shook her head. That doesn't make sense. It gets worse. Kevin sent the document. Emma opened it. The report contained photographs of the Ravenwood exchange, financial records, witness interviews, and a final conclusion. Emma looked at Ben. So Harold wasn't the mastermind. No. Seriously, trying to find someone above him? Kevin continued. There's a name. Emma looked at the screen. She froze. His daughter. Wes. Emma stared. Why would Harold investigate his own daughter? Kevin answered. Because Laura wasn't his daughter. Emma felt the room go silent. Then who was she? Kevin sent another file. A birth certificate. The name was different. The photograph matched Laura. Emma read the name. Catherine Cross. Ben stared. Wait. Emma looked at him. Cross. Vivian Cross. Emma nodded. They were sisters. Kevin continued. Catherine Cross was born in 1984. Laura Whitmore. 1984. Same birthday? Same hospital. Emma felt a chill. The identity was transferred from one sister to the other. Kevin nodded. And there's something else. What? The real Laura Whitmore was born in 1978. Emma stared. Then who was the woman in the photograph? Kevin answered Vivian Cross. Emma finally understood. The woman everyone called Laura had been Vivian. The woman everyone called Vivian had been Catherine. The entire family had been using manufactured identities. And the real Laura Whitmore had been erased. That evening, Emma found Evelyn alone in the hospital chapel. She sat in the last row. Emma walked toward her. You knew. Evelyn didn't turn. Yes. About Laura? Yes. Yes. You knew Daniel was looking for her? Yes. And you never told me? Evelyn looked up. If I had, she would be dead. Emma sat beside her. Where is she? Evelyn was silent. Dr. Shaw. She's safe. Where? I can't tell you. Emma stared at her. You're protecting her. Yes. From Daniel? From Daniel, Michael, and everyone else. Emma frowned. Michael too? Evelyn nodded. Mom, Michael wants to destroy the exchange. That's not necessarily bad. Nope, but he doesn't care who gets hurt. Emma leaned back. What about Laura? Evelyn looked down. Laura has the original ownership documents. The ones proving who owns the exchange. Yes. And the money? She controls that too. Emma understood. That's why everyone wants her. Evelyn nodded. Daniel wants the money. Michael wants to destroy it. Richard wants a share. And the 5 retirees. They wanted to survive. Emma looked at her. Then why were they killed? Evelyn's voice became quiet. Because they were about to tell you where Laura was. Emma stared. Who killed them? Evelyn looked directly at her. Daniel ordered Mercer. But Mercer was dead. Before he died, he trained someone? Emma's expression hardened. Who? Evelyn hesitated. Then, wretched. Emma went still. Richard learned the medical process. He could make deaths look natural? Yes. So Richard killed the 5 retirees. Evelyn shook her head. Not all of them. Who did? One of the deaths was Richard? Emma frowned. Which one? Arthur Klein. Emma remembered. Arthur Klein had died 8 months earlier. Stroke. No autopsy. Richard had been his attorney. Evelyn continued. Richard killed Klein. Emma's eyes narrowed. And then Daniel killed Richard. I don't know. Emma stood. Where is Richard now? Evelyn looked at her. At the place where the original ledger was created. Emma frowned. Where? The Ravenwood Exchange. And Emma sighed. Of course. The old exchange was empty when Emma arrived. Ben and Olivia entered behind her. The building was dark. They searched the main floor, nothing. Then Emma noticed a door beneath the staircase, a small brass plate RACVB. She opened it. Inside was a narrow office. Richard Bell sat behind a desk. He was bleeding from the shoulder. Emma rushed forward. Richard. He looked at her. You came. Who shot you? Richard smiled weakly. You're going to hate the answer. Try me? Laura. And Emma froze. Laura shot you. Richard nodded. Why? Because I found her. Emma crouched beside him. Where is she? Richard pointed toward a locked cabinet. Inside, and Emma opened it. No Laura, only a stack of documents. She picked up the first, original ownership transfer. Second, the real Whitmore family records. Third, a handwritten note. Emma unfolded it. Detective Hayes, if Richard brought you here, he's already failed. The money isn't the prize. The identities are. Emma, read the final line. One of the people working beside you has already taken mine. Emma slowly lowered the paper. Ben looked at her. What does it say? Emma looked around the room, then toward Olivia, then toward Ben. Her voice became quiet. Someone on our team is using a stolen identity. Nobody spoke. Richard suddenly grabbed Emma's wrist. His eyes widened. Not someone. Emma looked at him. Ooh, Richard whispered. Everyone. His hand went limp. Emma checked his pulse. Nothing. Ben stared. He's dead. Emma stood slowly. On the desk beside Richard's body lay a final document, a police personnel file. The photograph had been removed. Only the name remained. Captain Olive Bruce. Emma looked at Olivia. Olivia looked back. And for the first time since this case began, Emma wasn't sure who she was standing beside. Emma didn't move. Neither did Olivia. The personnel file lay open on Richard Bell's desk. Captain Olive Bruce. But the photograph was missing. Ben slowly looked from the file to Olivia. Tell me that's a coincidence. Olivia didn't answer. Emma raised her weapon. Nobody move. Ben immediately stepped back. Olivia's hands rose. Emma, don't. I can explain. That's what everyone says. Ben glanced at Emma. She's got a point. Emma looked Richard Bell Hamon. Your years. How long have you known about the exchange? Olivia hesitated. Longer than you. Emma's eyes narrowed. That's not an answer? No. Olivia slowly lowered herself into a chair. Because I didn't know what I was looking at. Emma kept her weapon raised. Then explained the file. Olivia looked at it. That's my personnel record. Without your photograph. Yes, why? Because my photograph was replaced. Emma froze. Replaced with whose? Olivia looked at her. Laura Whitmore. Silence. Ben stared. You're Laura. Olivia shook her head. No. She reached into her jacket and removed an old photograph. She placed it on the desk. A young woman stood beside an older man. Emma recognized the woman immediately. Laura Whitmore. But the photograph was dated 1998. Olivia pointed to herself. That's my mother. And Emma frowned. Your mother? Yes. Then why is her photograph in your personnel file? Olivia looked at Richard's body. Because Richard wanted someone to believe I was Laura. Emma lowered her weapon slightly. Why? Because Laura is the legal owner of the exchange. Ben shook his head. And apparently everyone wants to be Laura. Olivia looked at him. Welcome to Ravenwood. Emma almost smiled. Then she noticed something. Olivia wasn't nervous. She was angry. Where is Laura? Olivia shook her head. I don't know. You're lying? No. Then why was her photograph in your file? Because Richard used me as bait. Emma frowned. Explain? Richard knew Daniel was searching for Laura, so he made Daniel think you were her. Les. And you agreed? At first. Why? Olivia looked toward the door. Because I was trying to catch Daniel. Emma slowly lowered her weapon. You've been investigating this independently. Olivia nodded. For years. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know who I could trust. Emma stared at her. That sounds familiar. Olivia gave a tired smile. Apparently we're all terrible communicators. Ben nodded. Finally something we can agree on. Emma looked at Richard's body. Who killed him? Olivia shook her head. I don't know. Emma examined the wound. One gunshot. Close range. No weapon nearby. Laura. No. Daniel. Possibly. Michael. Also possible. Emma frowned. That's helpful. Olivia sighed. I told you I didn't know. Emma stood. Then we're going to find out. She looked at Ben. She searched the building. They separated. Emma checked the office. Behind Richard's desk was another hidden compartment. Inside was a small digital recorder. She pressed play. Richard's voice filled the room. If you're listening to this, I'm dead. Emma closed her eyes. Apparently everyone in Ravenwood owns a recorder. Ben called from the hallway. Emma. She ignored him and continued listening. Richard's voice sounded frightened. I was wrong about Laura. A pause. She's not trying to take control of the exchange. Another pause. She's trying to destroy it. Or Emma looked at Ben. He had returned. The recording continued. Daniel wants the money. Michael wants revenge. Laura wants the entire system gone. Richard took a breath. And Catherine wants her daughter alive. Emma froze. Daughter. Laura was Catherine's daughter. Not sister. Not replacement. Daughter. The recording continued. That's why the identities keep changing. Everyone is trying to hide Laura. Everyone except Daniel. The recording ended. Emma looked at Ben. Find Kevin. 20 minutes later, the team assembled at the station. Kevin displayed a network map. We traced the identity records. Emma watched the screen. Where does everything lead? 3 places. Which? Ravenwood General Hospital, the exchange, and the police department. Emma stared. The police department. Kevin nodded. Someone inside the department has been accessing restricted identity records for decades. Woo. Kevin brought up the access history. The earliest records went back to 1992, then 1998. Emma recognized the pattern. Every major identity transfer had been accessed from inside the department. Can you identify the user? Kevin shook his head. The old system didn't record individual usernames. Then what did it record? Terminal numbers. He displayed one. Terminal 17. Emma remembered the number again. Where is Terminal 17? Kevin looked at the old station map. Basement. Ben sighed. Why is everything in Ravenwood buried underground? Nobody answered. Ben looked around. Just asking. The basement of the police department hadn't been used in years. Dust covered the hallway. Old furniture lined the walls. Emma found Terminal 17 in a locked records room. The computer was ancient, but it was still connected. Kevin examined it remotely. This thing shouldn't even boot. Ben looked at the machine. Neither should half the people we've met. Emma glanced at him. You're getting better. Thank you. Kevin typed. The screen flickered. A database appeared. Ravelo it mea giamana stim. Emma stared. That's the exchange. Emma Scange. Kevin nodded. Someone connected the private system to the police database. Emma looked at the records. Thousands of identities, some marked active, others deceased. She searched Laura Whitmore. Result. DCD. 2018. Emma opened it. The death certificate appeared. Cause natural causes. Signature Evelyn Shaw. Emma looked at Kevin. Searched the certificate number. Kevin did. His expression changed. This certificate number belongs to someone else. Woo? Laura Whitmore's mother. Emma froze. So Laura's death certificate used her mother's number. Kevin nodded. Identity substitution. Emma searched another. Catherine Vale. The system showed DECSD 2014. She opened it. Same certificate number. Same medical signature. Emma's stomach tightened. Every death had been created from another person's identity. Not just to hide murders, to hide the living. She searched Emma Hayes. The system paused, then displayed identity status of the Ben looked over her shoulder. That's good, right? Emma stared. Under her name was another field. Sikodara identity pendiangu transfer. Her blood went cold. Kevin. He leaned closer. What? Can you open the transfer? He did. A name appeared. Muhammad Amar. Emma stared. Someone had been preparing to transfer Laura's identity to her. But the date was tomorrow. Ben looked at the screen. Tomo. Emma nodded. What happens tomorrow? Kevin scrolled. Ownership transfer. Off what? The system displayed the answer. RVODEXC Hanji. 100% Conroll. Emma felt a chill. They're going to make me the legal owner. Ben nodded. And then? Kevin opened another document. Then they transfer the $214 million into your account. Emma stared. Why? Kevin looked at the final line. Because after the transfer you're scheduled to die. Silence. Ben's face hardened. Natural causes. Kevin nodded. Cardiac arrest. Emma looked at the timestamp. Tomorrow, 8:00 p.m., her scheduled death had already been entered into the system. The killer hadn't just planned to murder her. They had already created the paperwork. Captain Brooks entered the room. She looked at the screen. Then at Emma. Now you understand. Emma turned. You knew. Olivia nodded. I suspected. When? 3 months ago. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed you inside the investigation. Emma's expression hardened. You used me. I recruited you. Without telling me. Because anyone I trusted could have been compromised. Emma looked at the system. And now? Olivia looked at her. Now they know we found it. A notification appeared. STMACES is detected. Kevin froze. Someone is in the database. Can you trace them? I'm trying. The terminal began displaying new entries one after another. Identite transfer PPROVED. Bito RSPDIN. Ben stared. Excuse me? Emma looked at him. His personnel file opened automatically. A photograph appeared. Then Sakodar identity Michael Vale. Ben stepped back. What? So Olivia moved toward the computer. Shut it down. Kevin tried. Another trailed. Another file appeared. Daniel Mercier. A CTIV Daniel Mercer? Kevin looked confused. That's Dr. Mercer's legal name. Paul. Emma felt cold. Paul Mercer had been using another identity. The system opened another record. Dan Mercier. IDNTEY transfer to O. Bentarvids. Ben stared at the screen. You're telling me I'm becoming a dead doctor? Emma looked at him. Apparently. He shook his head. I've always wanted a promotion. Emma almost laughed. Then the computer screen went black. A message appeared. Transfer Bginasima D and DNGST. Underneath Oni DINT Sor Viwi. Then another line appears. Kiar wide. At midnight, the station lost power. Emergency lights flickered on. Emma heard a door slam upstairs. She drew her weapon. Ben did the same. Olivia looked toward the hallway. Someone's inside. Kevin stayed near the terminal. Power's been cut from outside. Emma moved toward the stairs. A figure appeared at the end of the corridor. Tall, dark coat. Emma raised her weapon. Police. The figure stopped, then slowly removed the hood. Emma froze. Laura Whitmore stood beneath the emergency light, older than the photograph. Alive, she looked at Emma. You found the system. Emma lowered her weapon slightly. You're Laura. Yes. Why did they put your identity into mine? Laura looked toward the terminal. Because they couldn't kill me. And Emma frowned. Why? Laura's expression hardened. Because I'm the only person who can legally destroy the exchange. Emma stepped closer. Then why haven't you? Laura looked at her. Because someone already tried. Ooh. Laura hesitated, then pointed toward Olivia. Her. Emma turned. Olivia had her weapon raised. At Laura. Ben stepped between them. Captain. Olivia's expression was cold. Move. Emma stared at her. Why are you pointing a gun at Laura? Olivia didn't answer. Laura did. Because Olivia Brooks isn't Olivia Brooks. Emma felt her stomach drop. Laura looked directly at Emma. She's been using my mother's identity for 28 years. Olivia's finger tightened around the trigger. Then she said, that's not true. Laura smiled sadly. Then tell Detective Hayes your real name. Olivia said nothing. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then 5. Emma raised her weapon again. Your name. Olivia looked at her. Finally, she whispered, Vivian Cross. Emma's blood ran cold. The woman from the original photograph. The woman everyone had thought was Laura. The woman whose identity had been buried for decades. Vivian looked at Emma and smiled. The name hung in the dark basement. Vivian Cross. Emma stared at Olivia, or whoever she had been. Ben slowly lowered his weapon. Captain. Vivian looked at him. Don't call me that. Emma kept her gun raised. How long have you been Vivian Cross? 28 years. Since 1998. Vivian nodded. Emma remembered the photograph. The woman beside Harold. The identity that had moved from one person to another. You're Laura's sister. Half sister. Laura stepped forward. She's more than that. Vivian looked at her. Don't? You stole my identity. I saved your life. Laura shook her head. You erased it. Vivian's expression hardened. You were 17. I was 18. You were being hunted. Because of you. Vivian said nothing. Emma looked between them. Enough. Women stopped. You're going to explain everything. Vivian looked at the dead terminal. The exchange began with identities. She paused. Money came later? Emma waited. People came to Ravenwood because they wanted to disappear. Witnesses, criminals, debtors, rich men who had mings. And you helped them? And? Wes. Why? Vivian looked toward Laura. Because my father built it. And Emma frowned. Harold? No. Michael? No. Daniel? Vivian shook her head. My father was Thomas Cross. Emma felt another piece fall into place. Thomas Cross. Laura nodded. He created the first identity network. Vivian continued. Thomas was an accountant. He discovered that dead people's identities could be sold. Emma stared. So the exchange began as identity fraud. Wes. And the Vale brothers expanded it. Daniel turned it into an empire. Michael wanted out. Emma looked at Laura. And your family? Laura answered. My mother discovered what Thomas was doing. Catherine.
Yes.
She tried to expose him. She failed. Vivian interrupted. She didn't fail. Everyone looked at her. She survived. Vivian continued. That's different. Emma lowered her weapon slightly. Why did you become Olivia Brooks? Vivian's expression became guarded. Because the real Olivia Brooks died. When? 1998. Emma remembered the system. Natural causes. Vivian gave a bitter smile. Car accident. Another replacement. Yes. You took her identity. I had to. Why? Because Daniel was looking for me. Emma frowned. What? Emma frowned. What had you done? I stole something. The ledger. Knew. Vivian looked at Laura. Here? Laura stared at her. What? I stole Laura. Emma understood. You took Laura's identity to protect her. Vivian nodded. Daniel wanted Laura because she inherited the exchange. She didn't inherit it. Not legally. Vivian pointed toward the terminal. The system was designed to recognize Laura as the controlling owner. Emma looked at the records. And you became Olivia Brooks so you could work inside the police department. Wes. To protect the system. No. Vivian's voice hardened. To destroy it. Emma stared at her. Then why did you keep it running? Because I needed access. For 28 years. Vivian looked tired. Destroying something like this isn't as simple as turning off a computer. Emma understood. You needed the original ownership records. Wes. The ledger? Yes. But Evelyn had it. I knew. Emma looked toward the hospital. Then why didn't you take it? Because Evelyn was working with me. And Emma froze. She was? Vivian nodded. She was supposed to protect the evidence. Until she started changing the records. Vivian looked away. That was her choice. Emma thought about the 7 deaths. You told us Evelyn had killed 7 people. She did. Why? She believed some people were too dangerous to leave alive. And Emma's expression hardened. And she decided who deserved to die. Yes. That's murder. Vivian nodded. Yes. Emma stared at her. So everyone became the thing they were trying to stop. Vivian didn't answer. Ben suddenly looked at the terminal. Emma. She turned. The screen had come back on. A countdown appeared. Oh, the 0941. Kevin's voice came through Ben's radio. Emma, the system is active again. Can you shut it down? I'm trying. The countdown continued. Other 0822 Emma looked at Vivian. What happens when it reaches 0? Vivian's expression changed. The identity transfer becomes permanent. Emma looked at the screen. Her name. AMAURAOREAMALRA Tamarlen. Odudian Arsai Ptiransfarsar Piltanti and beneath it medical status Tanasiti Ben stared. They've already written your death? Emma nodded. Yes. Vivian stepped toward the terminal. Move. Didn't. Can you stop it? Vivian looked at her. Maybe. Then do it. Vivian entered a password. Denied. She tried another. Denied. Laura stepped closer. Try my mother's name. Vivian looked at her. Catherine. Yes. Vivian typed. The system unlocked. Emma stared. How did you know? Laura shook her head. I didn't. She looked at Vivian. She did. Vivian stared at the screen. I haven't used that password in 28 years. The terminal displayed a message. Siko and Raku. Vivian's expression changed. What? Emma looked at the screen and Ben swore. Evelyn. Vivian stepped back. She changed the system. Emma immediately called Evelyn. No answer. She called again. Nothing. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. Emma answered. A man's voice spoke. Detective Hayes. Daniel. Where is Evelyn? A pause. With me? Emma's jaw tightened. Please, then give orders. Then what do you want? The ledger. Then Emma looked at Vivian. We don't have it. Daniel laughed. You do. Emma realized. The black ledger was still at the station. You want the ledger. I want the original. Why? Because it contains the final identity. Emma frowned. What final identity? Daniel's voice became quieter. Mine. The countdown reached 5 minutes. Vivian looked at Emma. Daniel is going to use the ledger to create a new identity. Woos. Someone legally clean. Emma understood. He wants to disappear. Forever? Laura stepped forward. We can't let him look at her. Where is the ledger? With Evelyn. No. Laura shook her head. She took it. Emma realized something. Evelyn hadn't been kidnapped. She had left willingly. She was working with Daniel. Vivian shook her head. No. Then why did she take the ledger? Because she wanted to bargain. For what? For what? And Emma stared. Evelyn had been afraid of Daniel for years. Maybe she had finally decided to save herself. The countdown reached 4 minutes. Kevin's voice came over the radio. Emma, I'm locked out. Can you bypass it? Not remotely. Then we'll do it manually. Vivian shook her head. You don't have 4 minutes. How long? 2. Ben looked at her. That's reassuring. Vivian pointed toward the server room. There's a physical override. Emma nodded. Show me. They ran through the basement. The server room was behind a steel door. Vivian opened it. Rows of old equipment hummed. Emma spotted the central server. That's it. Vivian nodded. Pull the main drive. Will that stop the transfer? No. Emma frowned. Then what? It will erase the identity. Emma stared. Mine. Everyone's. All the records. Vivian nodded. Everything. Emma hesitated. The system contained evidence of decades of crimes. If she destroyed it, thousands of records could disappear. But if she didn't, her identity would be stolen and her death would become official. Ben looked at her. Your call. Emma stared at the server. Then she remembered the victims. People whose lives had been erased. People who had been turned into someone else. People who had been declared dead while they were still alive. She looked at Vivian. There has to be another way. Vivian shook her head. There isn't. The countdown reached 02:11. Emma looked at Ben. Can Kevin isolate the identity system? Ben grabbed the radio. Kevin? I'm here. Can you disconnect the medical database from the ownership system? A pause. Maybe. Do it. I'll need 3 minutes. Emma looked at the countdown. Joe 1:54. You have 90 seconds. That's not how computers work. Make it work. Ben smiled. Now that's the Emma I know. Kevin began typing remotely. The server lights flickered. One system disconnected, then another. The countdown stopped. Emma exhaled. The screen displayed transfer ion TRR RPT'd. Ben smiled. That worked. Then another message appeared. RGNCYPR to call us EVT'd. Vivian's face went pale. What? Emma looked at her. What does that mean? Vivian whispered. The system is choosing a replacement. The screen changed. Premar IDNT. Emma halesa sekiodar IDNT UI la UR amoris hemora theni terra manitoe and subijeta Ben and Torbren stared. Excuse me, Emma's expression hardened. The system had switched targets. A new countdown. Ben looked at Emma. That's rude. Emma didn't smile. She looked at Vivian. How do we stop it? Vivian stared at the screen. There is only one way. What? The system needs a legal death? Emma froze. A death. Vivian nodded. Someone has to officially die. Ben looked at Emma. No. Emma shook her head. Nobody is dying. Vivian looked at the terminal. Then the system will choose someone. The countdown began. 04 from 59 4 8. Emma stared at the names. Then she noticed something. A third name had appeared. Rihardbl, DKSD Emma frowned, Richard Arnetti dead. Then another name appeared. DREVL des IBS DEKSD Emma's eyes widened. Those aren't future targets. Vivian stared. No. Emma understood. The system is closing identities. Then looked at her. Meaning, Daniel isn't trying to create a new identity. She pointed at the screen. He's erasing the old ones. Vivian's face changed. He's destroying the evidence. Emma nodded. If the system closes every identity connected to the exchange, nobody can prove who anyone really was. Laura stepped closer, and Daniel disappears. Emma looked at the countdown, then at the list. The next name appeared. K. Ranivelli DC. Laura gasped. No. Emma grabbed the radio. Olivia. No answer. Captain Brooks. Static. Then a voice. Not Olivia. Daniel. You understand now. Emma looked toward the server. Daniel's voice continued through the speaker. The murders were never about money. A pause. They were about erasing history. Emma's eyes narrowed. Where's Catherine? Daniel laughed. With Evelyn. Emma looked at Vivian. Where? Vivian's face went white. Ravenwood General. Emma grabbed her jacket. Then that's where we're going. Ben followed. Laura came after them. Vivian stopped. Emma. She turned. Vivian looked toward the terminal. There's something you need to know. What? Vivian pointed to the final identity record. A name appeared beneath Laura's. Oragon LidnitYemi Hawaiis. Emma stared. What does that mean? Vivian's expression was grim. It means your identity was in the exchange before you were born. Emma froze. Ben looked at her. How is that possible? Vivian whispered. Because your mother was one of them. Emma stared at Vivian. My mother. Vivian nodded. Your mother was connected to the exchange. Ben looked at Emma. Did you know? Emma shook her head. No. Vivian stepped closer. Your mother wasn't a criminal. Then why was she in the system? Because she was a witness. Emma felt her chest tighten. To what? The first identity transfers. And Emma remembered the terminal. Her name had appeared as an original identity. Not a secondary one. Not a replacement. Original identity. What's my mother's name? Vivian hesitated. Then said, Claire Hayes. Emma went completely still. She had spent years believing her mother's life had been ordinary. There had never been anything mysterious about her death. At least, that's what Emma had been told. Claire knew Catherine. Vivian continued. She knew Thomas Cross. She knew the Vale brothers. And she knew about the exchange. Less. Why didn't she tell me? Because she wanted you nowhere near it. Ben looked at Vivian. Then why is Emma's identity in the system? Vivian answered quietly. Because Daniel created it. Emma frowned. Why? To protect you. That made no sense. You don't protect someone by putting their identity into a criminal database. You do if the people hunting them believe they're someone else. Emma stared. Vivian continued. Daniel knew Claire had hidden evidence. He believed you might eventually find it. So he created a false identity for me. No poo. Vivian shook her head. Your identity was real. Emma's expression hardened. Then what was changed? Your records. Emma felt cold. Someone altered my birth records. Vivian nodded. Your original birth certificate was replaced. With what? Another one? And Emma looked at Ben. So my entire identity is legitimate. Vivian paused. But the records proving it aren't. The sirens began before anyone could speak. Emma looked toward the basement entrance. Police. Vivian shook her head. No. The lights flickered. Ben drew his weapon. Then who? A gunshot echoed from upstairs. Everyone froze. Another. Then another. Emma grabbed Laura. Stay behind me. Ben moved toward the stairs. Vivian followed. They reached the hospital corridor. Chaos. 2 security guards were down. A nurse was hiding behind the reception desk. And at the far end stood Daniel. He held a gun. Beside him was Evelyn. Catherine was on her knees. Daniel looked at Emma. You came. And Emma raised her weapon. Let Catherine go? Daniel smiled. You still think you're in control? You've killed enough people? No. He shook his head. I've corrected enough mistakes. Emma's voice hardened. Put the weapon down. Daniel looked at Evelyn. Tell her. Evelyn stared at Emma. The ledger contains the original ownership records. Emma nodded. We know. But it also contains the identity registry. Emma looked at Daniel. You need it to erase your history. Daniel smiled. Exactly. Catherine looked up. Don't give it to him. Daniel pressed the gun against her head. Emma stopped. Daniel looked at her. You have 2 choices. Let her go. Give me the ledger. Emma glanced at Evelyn. Where is it? Evelyn slowly reached into her bag. The black ledger appeared. Daniel smiled. Good. Emma stepped forward. You take it, and what happens? I disappear? And everyone else? They forget? And Emma understood. Every person connected to the exchange would become legally impossible to identify. The victims would lose their history. The criminals would disappear. the evidence would be gone. No. Daniel's smile disappeared. What? I'm not giving it to you. Daniel raised the gun. Catherine shouted, "Oh, Emma, run." Daniel fired. Ben pushed Emma aside. The bullet struck the wall. Olivia, or Vivian, returned fire from the stairwell. Daniel ducked. Evelyn grabbed Catherine. "Move." They ran. Emma chased Daniel. He disappeared through a service corridor. Ben followed. Left. Emma turned. Daniel slammed a door behind him. They reached it seconds later. Locked. Ben kicked it. Nothing. Again. The door broke open. Daniel was gone. But a trail of blood led deeper into the hospital. Emma followed. They reached the old basement, the same hidden clinic, the same place where so many deaths had been staged. Daniel was standing beside the central server. He held the ledger. Emma stopped. "You got it." Daniel smiled. "You made it easy." Emma stared. "How?" Daniel held up the ledger. Evelyn. Emma turned. Evelyn was standing behind her. Emma's expression hardened. Evelyn shook her head. "I didn't." Daniel laughed. "You still don't understand." He opened the ledger. "I never needed the original." Emma frowned. "What?" "I needed everyone to believe I did." He threw the ledger onto the floor. Emma looked at it. "Then what do you need?" Daniel pointed at the server. "Hair." Emma froze. He pointed directly at Emma. "Your identity." Daniel explained that the entire system had been built around one principle. An identity was valuable only when everyone else believed it was real. Emma's identity had been selected because Claire Hayes had once been registered as a protected witness. Daniel had created a hidden ownership pathway connected to Emma decades earlier. If Emma accepted the transfer, she would become the legal owner of the exchange. Then Daniel would take control through her. "But you don't need me dead," Emma said. Daniel smiled. "No." He looked at the system. "I need you alive." Emma understood. That's why the death certificate was fake. Exactly. The 5 retirees. Testing. Their wills. Testing. The account. Testing. Everything was preparing the transfer. Daniel nodded. "You were the final step." Emma looked at the screen. Her name was still there. Then another line appeared. Daniel pointed at the biometric scanner. "Touch it." Emma didn't move. "If I refuse, then Catherine dies." Catherine looked at Emma. "Don't." Daniel raised the gun. Emma stepped toward the scanner. Ben shouted, "Emma, don't!" She stopped. Daniel smiled. Smart choice. Emma looked at the scanner, then at the server, then at Daniel. She finally understood something. Daniel was obsessed with identities. He believed records controlled reality. That was his weakness. Emma stepped forward. She placed her hand on the scanner. The system began reading her fingerprint. "Identity verifié." Daniel smiled. "Excellent." Then Emma lifted her other hand. She held a small evidence device. Kevin had given it to her earlier. The device connected to the station's network. She prever flickered. The server flickered. Daniel's smile disappeared. "What did you do?" Emma stepped away. Uploaded everything. Daniel stared at the screen. Thousands of files began transferring. Identity records, financial accounts, death certificates, medical reports, photographs, names, every crime, every victim, every person involved. The entire exchange. Daniel lunged toward the server. Ben tackled him. The gun slid across the floor. Vivian grabbed it. Daniel fought wildly, but Ben held him down. "Stay down." Daniel laughed. "You think this changes anything?" Emma looked at him. Yes, the server continued transmitting. Across the country, encrypted copies were being sent to federal investigators, financial crimes units, and prosecutors. Daniel stared at the screen. "No." Emma stood over him. "You spent 19 years erasing people." She looked toward Catherine. "No, everyone gets their name back." 2 weeks later, Ravenwood changed. The arrests began quietly. Then all at once. Former officials, bankers, attorneys, doctors, business owners, people who had spent decades believing the exchange was untouchable discovered that it wasn't. The financial accounts were frozen. The $214 million was placed under federal control. The identities of the victims were restored. The families of the dead finally received answers. Captain Olivia Brooks was publicly cleared. Her real name was Vivian Cross. She had spent 28 years inside the department under a stolen identity. But unlike the others, she had used it to dismantle the organization from within. Dr. Evelyn Shaw accepted a plea agreement. She admitted altering medical records and participating in several illegal deaths. She also handed over the names of every victim she had documented. Richard Bell's files became some of the most important evidence in the case. He had helped build the system, then tried to escape it. Daniel Vail was charged with multiple counts of murder, fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Michael Vail disappeared before authorities could locate him. But his records were found. His role in dismantling the exchange was documented. Catherine Vale survived. Sarah survived. Rachel survived. And Margaret finally stopped hiding. 3 months later, Emma stood outside the Ravenwood Exchange. The building had been condemned. The old sign had been removed. The windows were boarded. Ben stood beside her. Feel strange. Emma nodded. What? Seeing it empty. It should be. Ben looked at the building. Do you think it's really over? Emma didn't answer immediately. No. Ben looked at her. That's reassuring. Emma almost smiled. Not everything. She held a folder. Inside was her mother's original birth record. Claire Hayes had been a protected witness. She had helped expose the first identity operation in 1992. She had disappeared afterward. And before she died, she had left one final letter. Emma opened it. She had read it several times. But one line still stopped her. If you're reading this, it means they failed to erase you. Emma folded the letter. Ben waited. What did she say? Emma looked toward the exchange. That she knew I'd become a detective. Ben smiled. Your mother knew you pretty well. Emma nodded. Apparently. They started walking away. Then Emma stopped. Ben turned. What? Emma looked back at the building. For 19 years, people had been declared dead when they were alive. People had lived under names that weren't theirs. Families had been erased. Money had changed hands. And 5 wealthy retirees had died because they believed changing their wills could protect them. The murders had looked natural. The deaths had looked unrelated. The evidence had looked ordinary. But beneath every death was the same thing. A person trying to control what everyone else believed. Emma finally understood the real lesson of the case. The perfect murder didn't exist. The perfect lie didn't either. Eventually, somebody found the inconsistency. A signature, a photograph, a missing file, a changed will, one tiny detail that didn't belong. And once someone noticed it, the whole story began to fall apart. Ben called from the sidewalk. Emma, she turned. Calming, she nodded. As they walked away, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. One message. Whoa, FONTXCXC Emma stopped. A second message appeared. Whoa, deed into fiend Varwa. Ben looked at her. What is it? Emma showed him the screen. He stared. Is that supposed to scare us? And Emma looked toward the city. No. She put the phone away. Supposed to make us look. Ben sighed. Of course it is. Emma started walking. Behind them, the abandoned exchange stood silent. But somewhere in Ravenwood, another identity was still being used. Another name was still hiding a real person. And another case was waiting to be found.